He doesn't understand. There's a curse upon me. I change into a wolf.
Listen to me, Peggy. I saw my father become obsessed by his power. He died a horrible death.
There's no need for us all to storm after her.
She'll come in if I ask her.
Why should we treat her so fancy? She's a Frankenstein.
The following is a paid advertisement. Really? A paid advertisement? Wait, the B-Movie Cast got paid? Yes, the following is a paid advertisement. This episode of the B-Movie Cast is brought to you by the estate planning services of Twyla Minear Brooks, attorney at law. Remember, when the zombie apocalypse comes, things will move pretty fast.
The body should be disposed of at once, preferably by cremation.
Well, how long after death, then, does the body become reactivated?
It's only a matter of minutes.
Minutes? Well, that doesn't give people time to make any arrangements.
Oh, you're right. It doesn't give them time to make funeral arrangements. The bodies must be carried to the street and burned. They must be burned immediately. Soak them with gasoline and burn them. The bereaved will have to forego the dubious comforts that a funeral service will give. They're just dead flesh and dangerous.
So don't leave your estate planning needs until the last minute, because you don't know when that last minute could come. Call Twyla Minear Brooks, attorney at law, at 859-351-2294. That's 859-351-2294. Remember, when you go, you don't want people saying,
"Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up."
Twyla Minear Brooks, attorney at law, is licensed for practice in the state of Kentucky. Consult your local attorney for matters outside of the state of Kentucky.
Command Mark, the time will be running at X-20 seconds. Mark, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire.
Spawned by the continuing decline and fall of society as we know it, and created on the second-floor spare-bedroom studio in the Piedmont of South Carolina. Podcasting on a shoestring budget and changing the world one freak at a time. It's the B-Movie Cast with your host, Vince Rotolo.
From coast to coast and worldwide via the internet, this is the B-Movie Cast, the podcast of unusual film and television.
Hi, guys, and welcome again to the B-Movie Clubhouse for episode 518 of the B-Movie Cast. Before I go any farther, I want to get our contact information out of the way. We love hearing from all of you, so we have a feedback segment devoted to your comments and suggestions, and this is how you can contact us. Option 1, pick up your phone and dial 888-936-0808. This is a toll-free number and a very easy way to leave a voice message. Option 2, you can make your own MP3 file and send it in to bmoviecast@gmail.com. Or use your smartphone voice software and record a call, then just send that in as an attachment instead. Or option 3, if you're not into talking, you can just shoot us an email to bmoviecast@gmail.com. Our website is bmoviecast.com, where you can subscribe to the podcast. It's free, and there you can join us on the Facebook B-Moviecast fan page and letterbox. Also, you can play the contest by sending in your answer by email to bmoviecast@gmail.com with contest in the subject line. And check out the links while you're there, or buy a t-shirt. I currently have smalls to 4X's. If you want to help us financially, there's a donation box you can click on as a supporter on the Lugosi, Karloff, Agar, and the infamous Xanadu level through PayPal. Also, the easiest way to donate is to click on the Amazon bar on the right side of our homepage. This Amazon link will take you to Amazon.com to make your purchase. It doesn't cost you anything, and you can still log into your personal accounts when you get there. It's completely private, so think about us before you buy online. We have our co-host from Lexington, Kentucky, author, editor, screenwriter, film producer, Nic Brown. He has a new website, and it is authornicbrown.com. That's AUTHORNICBROWN.com. He's the author of the Werewolf for Hire series starting with Blood Curse. He's also selling a series of books in collaboration with his wife, Fiona Young Brown, called the B-Movie Cookbooks. All of these are available on Amazon. He has produced 3 movies. The first 2 are Wretch and Loss Prevention, both of which could be ordered on Blu-ray or DVD through Amazon. And he is also the producer of the award-winning film Fall of Usher, which is now available for purchase or rental on iTunes and Amazon Streaming. Also joining us today is a fan favorite, the extraordinary photographer and our good friend from London, Mark Mawston. His website is markmawston.com. That's MarkMawston. You can also buy his work on rockarchive.com, the world's finest print archive specializing in rock and roll imagery, featuring some of the most famous rock photographers on the planet. Mark's photographs have been featured in many of the leading titles in the music press, such as Mojo, OMM, and Music Collector. His work can also be seen in books such as I Was There, 50 Gigs That Changed the World, as well as most of the leading nationals, such as The Times, The Guardian, The Telegraph, and The Independent. And today's film is a Nic and Mark pick. Our movie today is Frankenstein Meets The Wolfman from 1943, written by Kurt Siodmak and directed by Roy William Neill. This Universal horror film is the first of a series called Monster Rallies, combining characters from several film series. So I guess this is the first Monster Bash, isn't it? In the screenplay, the transplantation of Igor's brain in The Ghost of Frankenstein caused the monster to become blind. And I wish I wish they hadn't cut those scenes out, because I never realized he was blind in this. It just was really confusing. And it's also a little sad, since Bela turned down the original role of Frankenstein's monster, calling it a part for an idiot or an extra tall, and yet he winds up being the monster in this movie and then gets his scenes cut. So it's like, boo. That's bad. Anyway, this is the only Frankenstein movie where the monster doesn't kill anyone, and this film takes place 4 years after the events of the Wolfman, just to kind of get everybody on track here. I watched this on Amazon Prime and immediately watched the original Wolfman from 1941, but that got confusing because Bela Lugosi plays the werewolf son of the gypsy in Wolfman, but plays Frankenstein monster in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. Yeah. Okay, before we start, there's a photo floating around on Facebook right now of Bela Lugosi and a German Shepherd that he had. They're both standing at a gate at his house in Hollywood. The German Shepherd's on 2 feet with his front paws on the top of the gate. And I've read that there was a dog, Bruno, in the Wolfman film, and he's a German Shepherd named Moose, and Lon Chaney Jr.
The Bela Lugosi. It's Lon Chaney,
Yeah.
Mary. It was Lon Chaney. Lon Chaney adopted that dog.
Yeah, okay. So is that the same? No.
Yeah, in both. Yes, it is the same dog, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Lon Chaney's dog. He adopted it.
Okay.
It was literally roaming around the sets of The Wolfman, and he was. There's great pictures of him dressed as Chorus with the dog next to him and all this kind of stuff. They're really great pictures. They became inseparable around the lot.
So is the picture that's floating around Facebook, is that Bela Lugosi, or is it Lon Chaney?
Chaney with the dog. There's lots with Chaney with the dog, but I haven't seen the one with Bela. Could be a different dog. There's lots of dogs around Hollywood.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, you're also assuming that it isn't Mary just being confused, Mark.
Yes,
so I'm going to throw that out there as a possible situation as well. Love you, Mary, but man, you get. I mean, Bela in Wolfman and Bela in Frankenstein Meets The Wolfman was confusing?
To me, it was. I don't know.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
You've got several actors who have been both playing different parts, Mary. It was like a rotate. It's like Hammer movies. You know, Michael Ripper played a different part in every single, be it a barman, be it a policeman, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
The universe were exactly the same. So Dwight Fry, who's in this, who was originally, you know, in Bride of Frankenstein and The Wolfman, what have you, this was his last role. He was playing just a minor role, whereas at one time he was Fritz in Frankenstein. You know, the guy who waves the torch at Frankenstein. And then he was the assistant Bride Frankenstein. You know, it's a shame how so everyone goes on about how Bela Lugosi's role was dropped. Dwight Fry is a perfect example of how the star can fall. And he died literally just before this movie even came out, I think. So a couple of weeks after the movie wrapped.
Aww.
Sad. But he was a great actor, Dwight Fry. And, you know, he's the one who eats spiders. Like that.
Well, and remember, this was back in the days when you had the real studio system. I mean, the real system where it was like, okay, these actors work for us. We pay them a regular salary, and we're just going to rotate them through every movie we make.
That's
you know.
Yeah, Dwight Fry was Renfield and Dracula, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's also Fritz as well in Frankenstein, in Bride Frankenstein. So, you know, he's a great comic actor, you know, but again, you know, he always played strange roles, and he's got the most amazing voice, and he always has a haunted look to his face. And he ended up, I think he's in Ghost of Frankenstein, just in the crowd, you know, when they're throwing rocks down. You know, it's crazy, you know, from being quite high up in the cast and important to, you know, sort of dwelling down into the traveling company, really.
Well, before we go any further, do you want to do the contest real quick?
Sure. What was it, Mary?
The answer was Wizards from 1977. Yeah, you made that easy.
Never seen that film.
Well, see, I didn't make it easy for Mark.
I know. I should have sent him a copy of it.
Hello, prizes.
It wouldn't have played there anyway. So.
Well, I'm going to say Mark probably has a region-free DVD or Blu-ray player.
That's true. That's kind of no excuse, really.
All right. Okay. So, Mary, before we start, what are the prizes we're giving away today?
Okay. Our first prize is the Santi Tito surprise package. Since it's a surprise to us, let us know what goodies are in the package so we can post them. And he's giving warning that if you don't send in the photos, your prize package might be a little smaller next time. And the winner is... Oops. And the winner is Phil Pine.
All right, Phil.
All right, Phil. So congratulations. You have the Santi Tito surprise package. Okay.
And you better send in the photos.
Yes. And our second prize is a 30th anniversary Blu-ray from Phil Pine. It's called Close Encounters of the Third Kind from 1977. This DVD contains all three versions of the movie, which I didn't know there were three versions. It also has Steven Spielberg, 30 Years of Close Encounters. It has a storyboard to scene comparison, a documentary called Close Encounters Making of, and the 1977 featurette called Watch the Skies, plus deleted scenes. Woo. That's a nice Blu-ray. And the winner is Russell Casper. So congrats, you have gotten Third Encounters. Close Encounters. Okay, our third prize has been donated by Stan Ward. This is the 2011 New York Times bestseller, The Walking Dead: Rise of the Governor, by Robert Kirkman and Jay Bonansinga. I just destroyed his name, sorry.
Well, he's not listening, so don't worry.
It's true. This is the first in a series of novels exploring the origins of the characters from the Walking Dead universe. Read it to discover how the governor became the man he was and what drove him to such extremes. And the winner is, Chuck Wharton. He's new. Hi, Chuck.
What's up, Chuck? Okay, Mary.
Okay. Fourth prize has been donated by our own Nick Brown. It's the paperback edition of Making of The Last Dinosaur, the Rankin Bass film. It was written by B. Harrison Smith, who was the official historian and biographer for Rankin Bass Productions.
No, he wasn't.
That's what it says in the book.
No, he talked to the forward is by the official. Trust me.
Okay.
This guy's a filmmaker who also writes books.
Okay.
So
Okay. Oh,
I'm calling you on that one, Mary.
Wow.
You're getting it a little messed up.
I did not read far enough into the book.
Okay,
Nick.
ladies and gentlemen, this shows why you should never give Mary a book for her birthday.
I was going to say, he gave me this book for his birthday, and I read the first part of it, and then I flipped it and started looking at all the pictures, because, damn, there's a lot of pictures in there. And
Yeah,
really
shiny
cool.
objects distracted Mary.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway, it's a really cool book. It really is. Do you have anything more to say about the book, Nick?
Oh, I love the book. I think it's one of the better film books I've read recently. It's to me, it's similar to reading some of the books by Alan Holtzman, who did the Battlestar Galactica, Battle Beyond the Stars feature, book about his experience on the set.
Mm-hmm.
Except this guy wasn't on the set. He was just a monster kid who was a big fan of this genre film. And he really takes a deep dive into the history of Rankin Bass and how the film got made and the characters. And he actually interviews Joan Van Ark for it, among others. So it is a really good book that I've read, Mary.
I partially read it. Oh, well. The winner of this book is Mike Schiederlo. So congratulations, Mike.
Congratulations, Mike.
You have won the Nick book. And real quick, our fifth prize is for me. It's probably going to cost me more to ship than it's worth, but I couldn't resist it. It's a Hot Wheels 1974 Corvette Stingray with Halloween skulls on it. Could you tell I was out Halloween shopping? And Ken Blow Santitito, he won it. So
well, all right.
Congratulations. It's probably going to end up in somebody else's prize package, but oh well.
Yeah.
And then
Can I just say something? So if you send a prize in, it automatically means you win one, because that seems to have been happening all day today.
I know.
Okay,
it's weird.
What happens is the people who send the prizes in are also the people who play the contest the most.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it tends to be a bit of in exchange, present exchanging.
Yes, it does. Yes. And our sixth prize is, again, for me, and again, it's a Hot Wheels, but this is a 76 Camaro SS, and it has Halloween skulls on it, too. And the winner is Nick Stumpf. So
hey, Nick Stumpf. I've been talking to him on Twitter, or X, or whatever the hell it's called now.
Cool. And that's it for the prizes.
No, it isn't.
Oh, what else?
No, don't be all surprised, Mary. Twyla messaged you.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and you've forgotten it completely. And I just had dinner with her and Eric last night, and they said, make sure she gives away the prize.
Well, why didn't you warn me ahead of time?
Because, Mary, you're supposed to know this. She texted you.
I know, but I have no memory.
Jibidua, Timmy. So, by the way, Mark, hi.
This is like I'm just listening. It's like watching a soap on TV.
No, it's like watching the comedy soap.
It's the show of Everybody Loves Raymond.
Okay, well, you announce this prize from Twilight. No, you do it. No, I'm not doing it. You have to.
No.
I refuse. You have to.
Okay. Here's what's really happening, folks. Mary doesn't remember what Twyla's given as a prize, and so she's trying to get me to announce it, so I'm not going to.
Well,
we're just going to call it a mystery surprise,
Okay.
and when you get it, you can send a picture in and say, Mary, why didn't you remember this? Am I wrong? No, I'm not.
No, you're being mean, so that's why you have to announce it.
Go ahead and announce the prize
Okay,
winner,
this
Mary.
is Twyla's. This is the prize from Twyla.
The mystery prize,
Mystery
because Mary
prize from
doesn't remember
Twilight,
what it
because
is.
Nick will not announce it. And the winner is Christopher Page.
Oh, Chris Page got it.
Yes,
Hey, that's cool.
So congratulations, Christopher. And we are at the end of the prizes.
Right.
Well, how many prizes was that, Mary?
7.
Gonna say, that's... Wow.
It's Halloween.
It is Halloween, so there's your
Yes.
treats for all you tricksters,
That's
folks.
true. That's true. Of course, you probably won't get them till after Halloween, but, you know.
Oh, I guarantee it.
Since I can't remember my name half the times. Okay. On with the show. Frankenstein Meets The Wolfman. And if I lose my voice, oh, sorry about that.
Hey, Mary, before
Yes.
we do Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman,
Yes.
since we last talked to Mark, I think a few things have happened.
Yes. Tell me. I'm like so excited for you. I can't wait to fly over there and see your new house. And is there any way
Mary,
we can watch?
you're taking all the all the surprise out of it.
I will.
That was a bit misfiring. Is there any way you can watch what? I'll have to ask Emma. What you? Yeah, so I've basically moved from living in London for 35 years, which is far longer than I ever lived in Newcastle, where I was born and grew up. And nobody of any of my friends thought I'd ever leave London because of all the stuff that I do photo-wise and everything. So I moved from London to Somerset. And every day nearly every day, I drive past Stonehenge, which is only 43 minutes away. So it's pretty. So if you do come over, it is amazing. The kids went there and literally we jumped in the car, 43 minutes. That's including, parking up and going in. And it's just amazing to have that on your doorstep. And we went for the autumn solstice, which was even better. So we had lots of semi-naked hippies sort of writhing around dancing. It was great. I loved it. It was something. It was like something out of Psychomania or something, and I loved it. And they were all very lovely, and the kids thought it was absolutely fascinating. And it was just a great day to be there. So we've moved into what is basically it's a place called Somerton, and we found it last year when I couldn't be bothered to drive all the way back to London from our friends in Dartmouth, which is on the seaside at the far end of the country, and we couldn't take dogs to the hotel we want to stay in. So they said, "Oh, there's another hotel." We literally drove into this place, and it is like going back into a Jane Austen novel. There's like the first thing you see is a gaslit monument in front of you, and then all these thatched cottages, and it's just amazing. And then memorials and everything, and then this huge corner, which is like it's so Dickensian. And then where the first street off that, and it's just mad. So we bought what was in essence the old bank. And it's a house which is built for some Earl, I think it was the Earl of Somerset, something like that anyway. But it was built for an Earl back in the day.
Wow.
And it's got a coach house. So you've got these two double gated things to the right-hand side, which basically we've been letting all the dump trucks and everything through. And then it's got an outhouse, and it's got this amazing garden, which is why Emma wanted it. I have to say that Emma and the kids are the ones who wanted this far above me. We looked at it must have been about 15 houses, and none of them liked them. And all it could go on about was this house, which is incidentally falling apart. It literally is falling apart. The amount of stuff we've had to do. So the first night we arrived, Emma said, we've got to pull all the carpet up because the guy who lived here had left the heating on constantly. So there was thousands of clothes moths. So I had to get on my hands and knees, pull all the carpet up, throw it into the backyard. Then the first night I flushed the toilet upstairs. It went through the floor and into the kitchen sink downstairs. Literally just touching on what we've been through. I mean, a lot. It's just literally falling apart. So literally, when I saw it last year, and Emma said, "Look at that house. Let's look at that." And I put my hands in the windows and I looked through. I said, "Oh, it's abandoned." That's the house we bought.
Wow.
Yeah, but to be honest, it's got an amazing feel. It's got just short of an acre at the back. So that means that you could fit, as you call it, soccer, you could fit 3 soccer pitches onto it.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but the stuff we found, the demolished. So we had to dig up the guys when we bought. They said, look, you are buying something which needs a lot of work doing to it. You're going to have to do it very quickly. So we ended up and said, the first thing you're going to have to do is pull all the old backyard up. So we had to get digger trucks, and we got to know all these guys who were amazing locally. And they knew everybody, you know, have people who've been living here for years, everybody knows somebody. And this guy just knows everybody. And we had the diggers came in and pull up all the concrete. And get this, we moved 78 tons of concrete in a week. 78 tons.
Wow.
Yeah. And under that, we found all the original sort of cobblestones that we used for when the horses used to come in. And it's a thing called lyre stone, blue lyres.
Oh.
And all got these marks along them so horses don't slip in the rain. And all the locals were telling us this. So the guy who lives just 2 doors down sells private jets to millionaires. He's a brilliant guy. And he comes around and sort of helps us with loads of stuff, tells us what was here and what. The guy further up was in a massive pop band in the 60s, and he was called Cliff Bennett and the Rebel Rousers. He lives 2 doors up, and because I knew who he was very chuffed. But all my friends are like giving me singles for him to sign. He knocked on the door, and he came in to have a look at the garden and everything. So this is the guy who Paul McCartney wrote "Got to Get You Into My Life" for. So that was on Revolver, but it was written for Cliff Bennett and the Rebel Rousers, and he lives 2 doors up. So you can imagine I'm in my element, and he says, "Oh, we'll come round and look at your jukebox." So it's full of the most amazing people. The house 6 doors down, someone lives there who was starring in Star Wars. Wow. So it's the strangest place. You'd love it. And we also found, so obviously my parents haven't even been yet because the place is literally we shift. You can imagine my stuff, Nick. You kind of know what I've got. We had 4 articulated lorries. Okay, the town has never seen its like. So 4 articulated lorries over a space of a week. We've only done half of them because there were 700 boxes.
Oh,
right? 700 boxes. And we literally are trying to get through what we can each week, and we're only having to do a certain amount every week. But we haven't been able to find anything, so I've not been able to find my Blu-ray tape stuff and all. It's been carnage, and of course, when you're a fanboy like me, not having your Blu-ray and everything is a nightmare.
Well, it's even worse.
It's more important than running water.
Streaming?
No, it's not. But it's just like so what we've been through is trying to find things and searching through boxes, and it literally there's a picture. At the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they put this Ark of the Covenant into the warehouse.
Our house. That's your house.
That's just like our house. Boxes upon boxes upon boxes, and the guys who moved the stuff obviously don't know what the word fragile means, because every box I find at the bottom of the pile has got fragile. Please do not put anything on. So it's just like beyond me. But I think at that time they'd given up the ghost because they couldn't believe the amount of stuff. And so they thought they'd emptied the house and said, "Oh no, there's the loft to come." They took a look at it and they said, "We are not going up there. No, we can't do that." And I said, "Well, so I'm going to have to do it." And so we made a human chain. When you have a fire and people do a human chain, they pass water down buckets.
Yep.
From the fire. That's what it was like getting stuff from my loft and down the stairs. So we had 6 guys on the stairs going down and putting it into the one of the several transport vans that we had, and then I had to take all the chairs and everything out the car. And we've got a decent car. You saw it's like a Yeti, so it's like a small MPV. I had to take everything out of that, and I filled that floor to ceiling with stuff that we couldn't take, and I did 17 dump runs in 2 weeks.
Wow,
exhausting, absolutely exhausting. So we did all of that. We moved in, and then we said, right, we're exhausted. We planned to go to the Scilly Isles like we love, the islands off the end of the country. And we booked that last year. We jumped in the car and we thought, great, we can now relax. Halfway down the motorway, there was this huge crash. We couldn't get through. We were going to miss our plane. And so I did all of these detours and I was shouting. People said, please don't let the plane go, because there was a strike that day. There was only 2 planes that day. And then, so the first guy was really nice. The second guy was really nice. The third woman was an absolute ogre. And she was basically saying, you're not going to make it. I've booked you on a ferry. This ferry, instead of taking 15 minutes on the plane, it takes 4.5 hours. And everyone chucks up on it because it's so with seasickness. And I thought, no, I said, I paid all this money for the flights. And they went, no, you've lost that. I thought, God, could you not just see that we're on our way and it's out of our hands? And then this other guy phoned up and said, look, we'll see what we can do. So I was literally driving, like, Lewis Hamilton, drive all these country lanes, trying to get through all this stuff. And then this guy phoned up and he said, how far are you away? And I said, we're literally a minute away. And he said, the plane goes in a minute. And I said, I'll be there. So we literally pulled in. I did like a Starsky and Hutch sort of skidded hole. Emma had her seatbelt off before we finished, jumped out. We threw all of the bags and boxes out of the car. The kids ran in. We had the people who were flying the plane chucking our stuff on the plane without weighing it or anything, just to get it on there. And then Emma said, I've lost your phone. So we held it up even more. So I had to go back out the airport, try and find my phone, couldn't find it anywhere. And they said, you can't wait any longer, the plane's going now. So I literally jumped on the plane and it took off. And I was gutted thinking, I can't take any pictures on my phone or what have you. We got to the other side, Emma lifted her bag up and it fell out. So there it was. Thank goodness for that. But the relief of actually getting there, it was the only flight that day, is standing there with a pint of beer overlooking the sea thinking, wow, we made it. It was untrue. But, what a month that was. Absolutely mental.
Holy cow.
Oh, man. And in the middle of that, I actually moved my office as well. So you know where I was? My office was on Diagon Alley. Not on Diagon Alley. Yeah. On, what do you call it? Nocturne Alley. We moved 2 doors up, Mary, don't worry. So we're in offices just 2 up. But that was 20 years worth of stuff there as well. So you can imagine what I was finding. We found all these movies on VHS that we used to advertise onto. We had 7,500 DVDs. We had, I can't tell you. And then all my gear, because my gear was like, a child's bedroom. You saw it. It was full of pictures and everything.
How did you get that couch up that staircase?
I have no idea. But we did. So that now is being turned. So they're turning it into a house. And I heard someone saying outside that the people who bought it for £2.5 million. Right? Which I can't believe, because basically it's an old brothel. So, which is absolutely true. So it's got the basement, as you saw. It had my office, then one more above it, and then the guy Richard, who I work with, at the top. And someone said, no, they've got that wrong. I said, yeah, I didn't think it was that much. He said, yeah, it was $4 million. And I went, what?
Oh, my God.
Seriously? And next door, they're turning into the Harry Potter the Harry Potter house. And basically, huge fans of Harry Potter, they're doing it into a house exactly like one of the houses in the movies, with a bar and everything downstairs, and everything's going to be from the Harry Potter. They've got stuff from where the film was made, where it was not L Street, but up and around there. Wow. And they're doing a house up next door as the Harry Potter hotel, so you can stay in it.
How cool.
I gotta say, that will be an expensive Harry Potter hotel, I guarantee.
Oh, no, it's a hotel, because only one person can stay in it because it's so small.
Yeah.
So one family can stay in it because it's tiny. So you can imagine they're going to be charging a premium for that. But yeah.
Well, yeah. They'll have a coupon.
Mad time. And then it's been, crazy just doing other stuff on top of that. It's just been mad. And last week I was out. I had a great time. It was the 50th anniversary of Sinbad and the Golden Voyage of Sinbad.
Ooh.
And so Cara Monroe and everyone was there, and Ray Harryhausen's daughter and the guys who set up the foundation. And I was asked to go along, which was very nice. And myself and Neil Pettigrew went along, who was great. The guys from Inside Number 9 were there. Graham Humphreys was there, who's the great poster, artist for who's done Nightmare on Elm Street and Evil Dead and everything. He'll actually come on the podcast for us. We should get him on. He's amazing. He tells some great stories.
Yes.
Yeah. And he's obviously done all the key art for all the video nasties, but obviously the key one is the Evil Dead. He did all of that. So he's a great guy. So I'll get him on at some point because he's wonderful. So he was there, and it was just a lovely, lovely night. And, it was lovely to see Sinbad, Golden Voyage of Sinbad, which is one of my favorites, actually, on the big screen, and then sort of ask questions afterwards and all that kind of stuff. So it was great.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Where was it?
That was at the Regent Street Cinema. And it's the oldest cinema in the country.
Oh.
So it's all inside. It's like when the talkies first started. It's the first one that have the talkies in and everything. It hasn't changed since then. It's identical inside. It's quite amazing.
Wow.
It's quite a beautiful place. And they tend to hold stuff there. The Bond people had Casino Royale there the other night. They were showing, why is Casino Royale, still so important and what have you. So that's quite good. It's funny. Next week, I've got I might as well tell it while we're on it. Well, on Monday I'm driving, so I have to drive up to London every week because the trains are fine, but it's while it's still the lights, while they're clocks haven't gone back. It's easier to drive, but it's 3.5 hours there and 3.5 hours back.
Oh,
So,
wow.
So I tend to do about 2,500 miles a month now. So but I don't mind as long as I got good tunes on and what have you. You know, it's fine.
You
but
you drive in every day?
No, once a week. So I go into the office for a couple of days and then drive back.
Oh, okay.
But so tomorrow I go up there, and then on Tuesday I'm very excited about this. I got invited by the Ian Fleming Foundation, and they're launching a book on Ian Fleming. And they're having the party in Ian Fleming's old house in Ebury Court, which is going to be, which is now a hotel. And I've been invited down to go to sit to that. So I'm very excited about that. That's on Tuesday night.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
So obviously I've only looked outside, but I've never been in. So I'm very excited about that. And obviously all the Bond people will be there for that. So yeah, that's exciting. And then after on the back of that, all the Halloween stuff's going to start, which is amazing. And around here, obviously, because you got Stonehenge down the road, everybody's really into it around here. So we've got all these pumpkin patches, which we had to struggle to find, you know, before, and we had to book miles in advance. But here, they're everywhere. But my favourite one, I was driving along to drop Emma off at the station last week, and I saw this sign. Get this in, pumpkins and mermaids, and I went, "What the hell?" So I drove in, and it's a farm. And I said to the woman, so just out of interest, it's a reindeer farm, but they also have real wolves, right? Real wolves.
Oh, wow.
Siberian wolves and all. Again, and I just thought, what on earth is this? But in the middle of farmers' fields. And I said, so tell me, what's the mermaids, the vampire mermaids? She goes, well, we have two. We have one kiddie-friendly one, and then we have another one which we're going to have live bands and which we're going to sell alcohol at. But basically, one of the students at the local college has agreed to come dressed as a vampire mermaid, fangs and everything, and we've got this see-through silo that we bought from an old station one day who had it, and she's going to be swimming around in that as we play vampire Halloween songs and toast marshmallows. I couldn't turn that down. So
vampire mermaids
swimming around on a farm
in reindeer.
Yeah, and in reindeer and wolves.
And wolves.
Yeah.
Don't forget the wolves, Mary.
Yeah. Wow. So that's, it's just, and I just love it. And I can't tell you what it's like around here. All the people are amazing. And I actually think a lot of the people who live here, some are in their 90s, and you could think they're in their 60s without a doubt. And I think it's because we were invited. They held a party for us, believe it or not, which was so lovely on the street to introduce us to everybody. Right, and it was, but everyone knew who. It was funny. I got stopped in the street, and they went, "Oh, Somerton House." I went, "How do you know?" And they said, "Oh, well, we know everyone, and you're new." And I thought, "All right, so it's those kind of places." And but it's because of what we've been doing. So we transformed. So the guy who had it before us had just not done anything for 8 years, and we've transformed the garden. We've taken the garden back to how it was, and everyone's seen all the rubbish coming out and what have you. But we've cleared it and leveled it, and we spent an absolute fortune. So we're having to do 2 less rooms inside because it cost far more. But on the first 2 weeks we were here, I found a sunken garden, a pond, a raised garden with a full-size marble Buddha in it, right? I kid you not, and a greenhouse. And we thought the greenhouse was just a hill. And then we took the ivy off it, and there was this 1950s, sort of greenhouse. And inside were all these amazing vines to make. It's just unbelievable, And
wow.
Since then, I found a viewing platform which is done in bricks, like terracotta bricks. We're just finding stuff every day. The girls next door, you love this, Mary. We live next door to a chocolate factory. They make their own hot chocolate, coffee, everything else, but their chocolate is incredible. So when we moved in, they made us chocolate with all of our names embossed on it, right? Really cool.
Wow.
The chocolate is out of this world. But they said, well, great, because we have a metal detector. So they came round a couple of weeks ago, and when we dug the concrete up, I found this little bit of a wall. I said, what's that? It looks in a funny shape. So we got the diggers out. We found this great big, we don't know, someone said it was a grave, but it's like a huge trough. It was too big for a horse trough because it was too deep. And then one of the guys came around, who's one of the workers who's been helping with the house, and he said he thinks that there was a hand pump there one time, and it was to hose the horses down before they went into the stables, because we've got stables. And we just went, wow, that's really cool. But in there, we went down, we dug it all out, and it was incredible to find this thing. So we're now going to put loads of lovely plants in it and everything, and light it. But then we went around, we found 20 foreign coins from everywhere, from Malaysia to China to just weird, really old, some of them.
Wow.
So it's been quite mad, and we found loads of interesting stuff just scattered around again. But to find a full-size marble Buddha, that's not the only one we found. We found another one. We found what looked like a Chinese imp thing, which is picking its nose. It's really weird. So that's more recent, but it's supposed to be a good luck charm. We found another Buddha. We found a stone otter, and I was digging around. I thought, what's a stone otter doing in this part of the garden? Then I pulled it up, and then there was this huge toad, and I found a pond. You know, it's that's the kind of thing that we've been finding. So it's been an adventure, to say the least.
Are you going to refurbish the pond?
We're leaving the pond as it is because there's a big toad in there, but there's a huge seating area around it, which I was working on this morning, and it's about 30 foot long. So there was obviously something there at one time, and it's all flagstones, and it's ancient because it's an Edwardian house. So some of these things are very, very old, and there was something built on here beforehand. So the stables were turning. So Emma's sister moved down with us, and she's moving in. We're going to do the stables up for her, which are part of the courtyard, and she's going to have her own house.
Oh, that is so cool!
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Great. Yeah, so it's lovely. I mean, we couldn't afford to get it unless she came down with us, to be honest, because you can move out of London once, but you've got to be very, very careful because you can't afford to move back. It's ridiculous.
Oh,
yeah.
Because the government we had in were just horrendous. So, we've had to, make sure we got right. But I think we've done okay. And the guys came round. I don't want to bang on about it too much, but I've got to tell you this quick story. So we went in, and just to get away from the house, there's all of these beautiful country houses. You love it, Mary, round here. And one's called Light Scary, or at the minute it's called Light Scary because they're having loads of Halloween stuff on, which is pretty cool. And we went in. There's another place called Montacute House, which is this huge, amazing house. I mean, it is stunning. It's like Brideshead Revisited. Wow. We went in there, and I said, look, rather than paying as much as it is to get in, can we not just join the National Trust again? She goes, yeah. She started thinking, she goes, where do you live? And I said, oh, it's not hard to remember where we live. It's Somerton House, Somerton, so it's pretty easy. And she goes, what, the Somerton House? I went, yeah. And she went, wow. And she got her friends to come across. And she goes, this young man, which made my day, by the way, this young man has just bought the house, Somerton House. And we're going, oh, fantastic. That's great because it's been let to rot, and everyone knew everything that happened. The guy who used to live here literally got drunk and cut down 40 trees when he was drunk. I mean, it's tragic what happened to it. It really is. And it's just been left to rot. So, so we're trying to salvage whatever we can now. And, but he had issues. So, you can't ever say anything, but you just got to get on with it. But so the woman said, do you know how famous that house is? I said, no. And she goes, it was the Earl of whatever's. And I went, right. And she says, but we used to have parties in your garden for the National Trust where we used to sell cakes and flowers and everything. We'd love to do that again. And I said, well, that's fine. Wow. And then it's got this program called Gardener's World over here, which is quite big. It's on a Sunday night. It's like Antiques Roadshow type big it is. And they're coming around. So the presenter of that are coming around, going to help us plan the garden now. And then we found out that the local school used to ask all their kids to come and sit in the garden and draw all the trees. Well, obviously they can't do that now because they cut 40 down. The guys. So we then found out from this millionaire who sells, jets up the road there. Tim's a lovely guy. He said, did you know you can get free trees if something like this has happened from the council? So Emma phoned up. So we're getting 16 full-size trees for nothing.
Wow.
Of course, full-size trees cost a fortune.
Yes.
So, and we're replanting them all with their help. So we're making it back, taking it back to how it used to be. And we've put all the gravel down, took all the concrete up. So it's been exhausting, to say the least.
But it sounds wonderful.
It sounds wonderful. The reality is it's like living in a warehouse at the moment. And I'm looking down, and I was devastated yesterday because one of the windows was left open. It ruined one of my You Only Live Twice posters, which is one of my favourites, but also got water damage on my signed Moonraker poster, which is the first poster I ever got off my granddad. But luckily, it didn't damage Roger's autograph. So I'm overjoyed that I didn't do that. But obviously, gutted that it's still slightly damaged. So I'm going to see how much they're going to cost. But that's the thing. When you have the rains here, it does rain, and it's not horizontal. It's not vertical. It's horizontal. It's just woof. It comes down in because it's the middle of cider country. So there's every pub you go to. And what is awesome, I said to Xanthi, let's go and get a pizza. We found this farmhouse, again, a sign saying cider and pizza. And I went, that sounds great to me. So we went in, and I gave up drinking cider because it used to make me so ill when I was 15 or 16 because I drank so much of it because it was the only thing I could afford. So just the smell of it now turns my stomach. But coming back, you're in the cider capital of the world. And I sent there's that sign on my Instagram thing, Nick, saying, do not throw apples, do not upset our neighbours, which I loved. And the cider here is incredible. And there's this farm that we went to, and you walk into the farmhouse. It's actually in the farmhouse. And there's 4 huge barrels on the outside. And you choose what cider you want. And the 4 different barrels are from 4 different fields on the hill where they pick the apples from. And they're all sweets, dry, what have you, fizzy, not. And they are the most, it's like drinking nectar. It's incredible. And they make pizzas on site every other Tuesday. So they're the best pizzas we've ever had in our lives.
Wow.
So they're the kids, I'll order a cider, and then we get our pizzas made. It's totally awesome. So yeah, we love that kind of stuff. And the area around it is just, it's an area of outstanding national beauty. It's just incredible. The hills and everything. And of course, when I drive Mauve and Xanthi to school, we drive literally not far from Glastonbury Tor. Well, obviously where the Glastonbury Festival is, but obviously that's where Excalibur's supposed to be. And we see that every morning. I drive the kids into school. So yeah, so it's pretty good.
So not much has happened with your new place then, is what you're telling me.
Yeah. I mean, it's still a picture.
And isn't somebody going to be on the Antiques Roadshow tonight?
There certainly is. When we lived in I'm taking up far too much time here, but you've asked me, and there's been so much going on. So, I'll tell you. So they
carry on.
They just before we moved, Xanthi was always saying she wanted to go on to Antiques Roadshow because she got these vintage ventriloquist dolls, and she loves being a ventriloquist. And she saw Paul Zidano, whoever won America's Got Talent. We saw him last week, and he was lovely to her. And she sat and talked with him, and he was really, really nice. And because he was playing the theatre around here, and so she said, "Oh, I've always wanted to go on. One day I'd like to take my dummies on." And I said, "Right, okay, I'll see what I can do," thinking that'll never happen. And then I saw this thing on the BBC saying, "We're at Crystal Palace. If anyone's got anything of interest from Crystal Palace, then let us know." So there's 2 or 3 of my friends all put something on. I think they're on tonight as well with pictures. But so I sent to them. I said, "Look, I've got the original bromide artwork for the Beach Boys' first album, Surf and Safari." I said, which was gifted to me by Charlie Brennan, who was the guy who sadly he's died since I've been on, and it literally broke my heart. Because there's been, when vultures come, when people die, and all of a sudden these people come out the woodwork, and he gives me all of his records. They've gone in there with boxes and changed the keys and nicked all the records and stuff. It's awful. And it breaks your heart that people can actually be like that. And then I was moving. I offered so many times to help. They kept saying, we can only do this, even though they lived up the road. And I was driving an hour and a half and then an hour and a half back, so I never got to help the way I wanted to. And then I found out, and they said, "Oh, by the way, it's all going into auction next week." Can you believe that? And that was supposed to be stuff that was left to me.
Wow.
So,
oh my God.
Awful. Let's just put it that way. And I think Charlie would be really upset at the way things have been handled. But anyway, while he was alive, he gifted me some wonderful, wonderful things. So Charlie was our entrant into the UK, to the Eurovision Song Contest. So he was in a band called Coco, who, do you remember a band where they were dressed up as clowns and they went, "These are the sad old days, these are the sad old days," and he sang out of a megaphone? Well, that was my mate Charlie, 1976. So he did that. And he then became head of the Beach Boys fan club stuff, and he was the guy who introduced me into Brian Wilson. I was sitting one day in the Royal Festival Hall, looking at the pictures I'd taken of the Pet Sounds gigs the night before, and he stood up and said, "Excuse me, where did you get those pictures?" And I said, "Oh, I took them last night." And he said, "Wow, can I have a look?" So I had a look, and he just looked at me and said, "Do you want to come and meet Brian?"
Wow.
And I went, "What?" And so he walked me up the stairs into Brian Wilson's 60th birthday party. And there was so many people were there. Paul McCartney. I mean, it was awesome. And
wow.
Raw Pet Sounds with them was there. And he was lovely, and I got talking to them. And then Brian said, "I really like these pictures. Do you want to come and do all my sets?" So that from that night on, I became Brian Wilson's photographer for Pet Sounds, Smile, Lucky Old Son, all the gigs that he did. When the Beach Boys reformed and they played the Royal Festival at Royal Albert Hall, I was sitting with Brian's family.
Wow.
It was amazing. So, I've told you the stories about where I've sat and he's, alone with him and he's played me a song thinking it was a brand new one. It was California Girls and stuff. So, I love Brian Wilson. And to be that close to one of your heroes is something else.
Wow.
So anyway, when he was playing at the Royal Festival Hall, I had this bromide that Charlie had gifted me. And I thought, Brian Wilson will freak out when he sees this because this is the original artwork for his first album. So I took it into backstage, and it was just after Smile had launched. And I kid you not, so everyone was in there. Brian May, as I said, Paul McCartney was there again. All the big British bands were there. Queen. It was amazing. And everyone was around, and everyone was talking and what have you. And I got this picture. I said, "Oh, Brian," I said, "I brought this in." I said, "What would be wonderful? This is the original artwork for your first album. I would love it if you signed it." There was a guy in the band called Jeffrey Foskett who used to sing the high sort of soprano type bits. And he went, "Oh, my word." And Brian Wilson freaked out. He just jumped out. He said, "I can't believe this. Is this what I think it is?" And I said, "Yeah." And so basically what happens is it's got yellow, blues, reds and stuff on it. And they all flip up. And it makes the album. So what they do is they put each one on individually. Then they used to put it on a light board and then shoot it and then put the songs on top of it as well. So I've got all of those different parts that Charlie gifted to me.
Wow.
And Brian took it. I'll never forget, he took it straight over to Paul McCartney. He said, "Look at this, Paul. Look what I've got." So, this has been held by, Paul McCartney's going, "Wow, woo!" How exciting. This double thumbs up from Macca, but it was amazing. And I'm just sitting there going, "Isn't this, you've got to take this in because this doesn't happen every day." And he came back and he said, "Thank you so much." And I went, "I'm really sorry, Brian." I said, "Look," I said, "Elvis is my biggest hero, but you're my living musical hero. But I'm afraid I can't give you this because this was gifted to me and it's absolutely one of my favorite things I've ever got." And he said, "So this is, you're not giving it to me?" I went, "No." He went, "Oh." And I just thought, I don't want to upset one of my absolute heroes, But he said, "No." But I said, "Look, would you please sign it?" I said, "I promise to look after it." And he signed it. And Jeff said, "Sign it nicely, Brian, because this is a beautiful thing." So he signed it for me, and it's been up ever since. And that's what I took into Antiques Roadshow, because the last full, one of the last gigs that they ever played as a band was there at the Crystal Palace.
Oh.
And it's amazing. It's an amazing stage. So it looks like it's called the Laptop now, but because it looks like a semi-opened laptop. It was made from stuff which would rust, so it would go in with all the leaves, but it's on a lake, right, in the middle of the park. So no one can get to it without being in the band. And you get these little drawbridge which goes down and you can get on the stage that way. When the Beach Boys played, Elton John came down in a helicopter and did a few songs with the Beach Boys. But Keith Moon from The Who was there, who was so plastered. He got dressed up. He came dressed as a pirate. Went into the cafe, which is in the park, bought all the sandwiches from the park, got into a rowing boat, and rowed round the lake, throwing sandwiches to people, going, "War!" I mean, awesome, isn't it? That's proper rock and roll. That's proper rock and roll. But my favorite thing was Crystal Palace is known because it was built there because the beautiful Crystal Palace, which was there, burned down in the 30s. So you only had the remnants, a couple of sphinxes and what have you. So, but it was where the transmitter was there for the BBC, because it's the second highest point in London. So they did one in Alexander Palace and one in Crystal Palace. So they're the highest parts of London. And so you could literally get anything from anywhere, unlike where I am now, where it took me 5 weeks to get, a connection for this. So, but anyway, but it was because it was so close to the transmitter, their microphones picked up the BBC commentating on the cricket. So, the Beach Boys would be singing, California Girls, or Help Me Rhonda, help. And hit the crease, here's Mr. Jones coming to do his fourth bowl. And so all of this was happening, and the Beach Boys were going, "What the bloody hell is going on here?" Halfway through Help Me Rhonda, we're getting the cricket commentary. And it kept coming through like that, which is all great. They'll probably cut all that bit out. But the bit I'm hoping they get is where they completely undervalue it, by the way, but the artwork, but as they did for everyone, because I've spoken to several people who were on there. But the great thing is that Xanthi, the woman who was incredibly glamorous, turned around to Xanthi. She goes, do you like the Beach Boys? She goes, yeah, I've got a ventriloquist dummy called Dennis, named after Dennis Wilson. Did you know he was the only Beach Boy that could surf? And this woman's just going, what? And so the cameras went, hang on a minute. Sorry, but the emphasis is no longer on you, Mark. Can we film Xanthi? She's amazing. Yeah.
Wow.
And I said, she can. So they're going to cut all of me out. I'm probably not even going to be on it. And so they said, right, Xanthi, can you do some ventriloquism for us? And she did it and she started doing some ventriloquism for them. So this is all in the Antiques Roadshow tonight.
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, that is brilliant.
Bless her heart. So you'll see Xanthi doing a ventriloquism. So anyone who's in England, you'll be watching it on iPlayer because this isn't going out live. But yeah, Nick, you said you're going to try and watch it live.
Yeah, I've got a setup in the house where we can spoof being in the UK, so I can watch live TV out of the UK if it's streaming. So I should be able. You said it's going to be on ITV.
It's on iPlayer instantaneously.
Yeah, I should be able to watch it. So that's awesome.
So look, sorry, that was you asked what was going on. That was far too long, but yeah, there's been quite a bit. So yeah, there we go. So I'm very I'm excited for Xanthi tonight. I hope it comes out okay.
I'm exhausted for you.
So Mary,
what's
been going on with you?
No comment. Oh, how can you follow that up? Wow.
Yeah, I know. Maybe we should have started with us. What's been going on with you, Nick?
I feel terrible hogging it, but you asked, so I told you. It's like,
no. It is wonderful, Mark, and that's why we love having you on, because just having you on is like an adventure. We don't need a movie. We'll just have Mark on, and here it is. This is
Mark's amazing
this week's
life.
Adventures.
Yes, Mark's amazing life.
Well, no, and by the way, big congrats to Xanthi. I think this is awesome that she gets to be on the road show and gets to do her ventriloquism. And if that doesn't get somebody to put her on, Britain's Got Talent or something like that, I don't know what will. I'm just saying.
So that guy who was on America's Got Talent, what was his name? Paul Zenden, I think's his name. Paul Zenden. Yeah, he won America's Got Talent ventriloquist. So he met her and he thought she was great. So that was lovely.
Oh,
that is great.
So what have you guys been doing? Nick, have you seen what's that big science fiction movie I want to go and see? I've forgotten what it's called. Not The Champion or something. I forgot what it's called off the top of my head, but there's a big science fiction movie by the guy who did Rogue, Star Trek, Star Wars.
Oh my God, why am I drawing a blank on it? You're talking about the one with the oh God, what is it called? It's the one with the artificial intelligence, right?
That's right. I'm worried.
Oh my God, what is it?
I'm going to try and see that. I just wondered if you'd seen it.
No, I haven't had a chance to see it yet. It's called The Creator.
The Creator, that's it.
Yes, that's it. And okay, here's the thing. I have been traveling for work so much, and between that and some health issues for my stepdad and trying to take care of that, and I'm also doing a bunch of shows over the next couple of weeks. And like next weekend, I'll be at the Scarefest in Lexington all weekend, and weekend before that, I was at the Bitchcraft Festival, and that's bitch with a B, which is a witchcraft and like paranormal, good energies, happy hippie kind of show. And so Werewolf for Hire fit in well there. Actually, that was one of the nicest shows I've been to. But I'm doing that, and I've got 2 more shows coming up in November. No, one in November and one in December. So I got that going on, plus the work, and then my stepdad's health. So, it's nothing super exciting, but lots of stuff. How about you, Mary?
Hey, I'm just trying to recover.
Yeah, how is everything, Mary?
It's very slow and it's very annoying, and I'll get there eventually. I can walk like a quarter mile now without having to stop and sit down. So I'm getting there.
You're getting there. And question, how long did they say it would take for you to recover?
They didn't. They're not giving me any kind of timeline. I go to see them again, like I think in the end of December. I go to see the back surgeon then. But my neurologist was just saying things like, you feel the pain, and then suddenly one day you just don't anymore. Because it's there constantly, and you don't even think about it after a while. And then suddenly you go, it doesn't hurt to do this anymore. So I'm waiting for that. He said it took him a year to do. He had rotator cuff surgery, and he said it took him a year to stop being in pain. So, but I've heard the bones are going to be totally healed by December.
That's good for Christmas.
Yes.
Good.
And my
now
friends
that
came
is
over
good,
and
Marianne.
friends came over and helped me put the Halloween stuff up outside. So that's fun. My two-headed dragon is greeting people, and yeah.
So are you going to give away candy at Halloween this year?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, have to do that.
Well, I got to say, I'm okay. This is stupid, but I'm still excited about it. This year for Halloween, I am going to be giving away full-size candy bars.
Wow.
Yeah, I found where I could buy them in bulk.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, normally at Halloween, you give away just like these little tiny sampler candy bars.
Yeah,
You'll buy
you
a
get in
big
buckets.
bag.
Yeah.
But I'm giving away full-on candy bars. Unfortunately, it's mostly American chocolate, so it's kind of crap. But I'm going to be that guy on the neighborhood that's giving away full-size candy bars. And I've always wanted to be that guy giving away full-size candy bars. But usually the cost would be a little bit prohibitive for that. But I got some in bulk, so I'm excited. So there we go. That's the most exciting thing for me right now. And I just got really depressed. So
how many kids do you usually get?
What?
How many kids do you usually get there?
Well, this is only our second year in this new house, but last year I think we had about 75 or 80 kids total.
Wow.
So, I'm planning for about 120. Wow. And then if it gets towards the end of the evening and I'm not giving away a lot, those kids are going to get a lot of candy bars because I'm not going to sit in my house with 30 or 40 candy bars sitting around. I will become
diabetic from eating them.
Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah. Wow. Cool.
But now that's my most exciting thing for this Halloween, and I think I'm becoming a little depressed now.
Why?
What the good thing is we've this because we've got all these that sort of mermaid farm thing going, which is good. I can't wait to see. I'll have to send you pictures from that. But, so that's on the Friday. On the Saturday we go up. Our friends having a massive birthday on the Saturday. So we've got that. So we've got an event on the Saturday afternoon. I then have to drive from Somerset to London for a party, but I can't get that drunk because it's 7:00 the next morning. I've then got to go to Pinewood because they're celebrating 70 years of James Bond, and they've got all of the living authors who've done all the James Bond books since Ian Fleming died at Pinewood, and they're showing the Barry Nelson cast of when they did Casino Royale and all that with a few extra bits that I've never seen, and then they've got all the Bond girls going along on there, and that's on that's on the Sunday, and then I've got to drive back all the way from Pinewood back to London, so I'm going to be absolutely knackered, and then it's Halloween on the Tuesday. I won't need to wear a mask by the time the kids come around, if there's any kids come around, because I'll be so absolutely knackered. It look bloody terrible. But it's so much. I mean, that's a lot of driving, and so I'm trying to just figure out how am I going to do all this. But it's better than sort of not doing anything, I suppose. But yeah, it's full on. And for the first time, Mauve's told me she's not going to be at home on Halloween. She's going out with friends. I was like, oh. So that's quite a big churn. It was like, oh no, that won't be the same. But then, funnily enough, we found out that there's a place where we get the train back to London, where when I start getting the train, when the night's drawing, I'll start doing that. But we found out that they're getting a steam train to come into the local station where everybody's dressed up as monsters, werewolves and vampires and stuff. Bring the whole thing in, and then it's a really old-fashioned station, and they're doing all the station up like a haunted station, and then you get to go on so that there's a half an hour ride on the steam train as a ghost train. So
my.
So I'm going to try and do that as well on the Halloween night. And of course, as soon as I said that, Mo said, "Well, I'm not sure if that part is definitely on." So she may come. You never know. We'll see what happens.
Wow, that's cool. And
that's fun.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you guys get kids going door to door asking for candy on Halloween?
In London, we did all the time, but we moved to this place where I think a lot of people come to Somerton to retire. So I'm not sure just how many kids there are, but I'm sure we will. Yeah, there's several people. I've seen quite a few teenagers around and what have you. So yeah, and younger kids. So yeah, so hopefully we will. But we're on the sort of it's amazing. So you get this, Nick. The reason you'd love to come here is because you come out the door and in 3 minutes you pass 6 pubs.
Okay, I'm buying my ticket right now.
And there's one pub where you jump in the car and it's called the Halfway House because it's halfway between where we are here in Somerton, a place called Langport, which is very ancient. It's really odd, really medieval. And it's called the Halfway House. That's in the last 6 best pubs in the whole country.
Oh, wow.
And I was there with a guy who was helping us with the house, and I took him for a pint on Friday, which was a great thing to do, because you get to a point where you think, right, it's 5 o'clock, let's just go to the pub. And so we jumped in the car, went to the pub, and this is amazing. So they alternate their beers every 2 days. Can you believe that? And then every 4, so they always have 12 different beers on tap, but they're changed every couple of days. It's unbelievable. And then, but the favourites stay. So the top 3 or 4 favourites stay, but the rest are always different. It's an amazing place. So they've got loads of stuff going on there as well for Halloween. So it's just an interesting place to be. So
that sounds like so much fun.
We will see, but we'll have to take you, Mary. I mean, there's a guy who used to be a jazz musician, and our friends came to stay, and his house, which is so huge, which is 3 minutes away, it's amazing. It's got the whole top floor is glass. Because the glass, the night times here are incredible because there's no light pollution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
see the clouds of the Milky Way here, which is something we've never had in London, and for 5 years. And hit the whole of the top of the house is glass, so you can just see all these amazing things. You can see for like miles and miles and miles. So when you come, we'll get you a bed. It's got 4-poster beds and everything in it, and they do the most amazing full English breakfasts and everything. It's awesome.
My.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, and so that's 3 minutes from the house. So when you do come, I'll make sure I get you the best room in there, and you can go in there. But the pubs, just walking around the pubs, you can just walk around them all. It's great.
Oh, okay.
I'm never going to want to leave.
I was going to say, you sold me on it, but...
Jeez.
So one thing, Mark, it's just occurred to me. So before Halloween, where you're living now near Stonehenge, you really need to watch Halloween 3.
That's what we're doing. And do you know what, Nick? I have looked everywhere trying to find it. So the kids are going on. So I've been through, I would think, 10 boxes of videos, and I found The Wicker Man, I found Children of the Corn, I found everything, The Thing, you name it. Talking about The Thing, I've just finished my interview with John Carpenter this week, which is good.
Wow.
But the one thing I cannot find is Halloween 3, and I'm gutted. And so I went into the shop near where I work in London, and the only Halloween movie that's sold out just shows the difference since we did the podcast all those years ago. It's the only one that's sold out. It's now got such a huge following, and John Carpenter's doing a special showing of it in LA, where he's talking about Halloween 3, and they're showing the movie and what have you, and there's all these amazing posters going out. So it just shows its standing has just gone from strength to strength, even though we were one of 4 people who loved it. It's got such a cult following. So so it's great. But I'm desperately trying to find it.
I hope you find it, Mark. My God.
I've got 2 copies on VHS, and I've got 2 copies on Blu-ray, and I can't find any of them, and it's really annoying me. So I asked Dave to help out. I said, Dave, if I can't find it, can you find it? Because I can't get it anywhere. You can't get the Blu-ray over here either, which is mental. But every time we pass Stonehenge in the cars, Andrew will go, Stonehenge. You won't believe how we did it. Which I love, which I really love.
Vince and I found a tour for Stonehenge that goes in after all the tourists are gone.
Right.
And you can walk around and sit under the stones and stuff.
That won't happen now. They're all protected.
What do you mean?
You can't get in there now.
Yeah, so they won't let you anywhere near it.
If you snuck onto it, you could, but there's all little fencing around it now, and little,
Right.
little.
Yeah, that's the way it was when we went. But there's a special tour that you can take, and you pay.
Well, was that through the National Trust? Was it?
I can't remember. If you really want to know, I'll look it up. But you get to. It's a tour. You get together with like 6 people in a little van and a tour guide, and he takes you through the fields and shows you the barrows and all that stuff, and you walk up through the sheep and you walk up to Stonehenge, and then it's getting twilight and they get rid of all the tourists and stuff that are there, and they take you into their little building, and then you actually are able to walk in through the fence and hang out under the stones.
Oh, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to look that up.
Yeah.
Actually, because it's literally 43 minutes away, so your coffee won't be cold by the time you get there from ours. So but when you do come over, we'll jump in the car, put all our Halloween. I've got the masks at the ready. I've got the witch and the pumpkin and the skull, and then we're ready to rock, and then we'll go down there. But you got a video from the kids from there thanking me for the Count Chocolate, didn't you, Nick?
Yes, I did, and that was so awesome. So, I'm glad it made it, because there've been so many problems with the post lately. But,
it is amazing. It's one of the things. So one of the first, because the kids completely associate you with that every year, like Santa Claus. It really is. And they say, "Oh, Nick's cereal will become Count Chocolate will be coming soon." And I went, "Yeah." And I just thought it's amazing. It's one of the first things they think of because they've grown up with it. Which again shows how long we've known each other, which is crazy.
Oh,
I know. Well, I was thinking about it. I think it was about it's 9 years this year since we were in LA together.
Wow, that's just flown by, hasn't it? My word.
Yeah, I know, right?
That really is mad. But there you go. But we'll have to do it again because we had so much fun doing that. I'll never forget that.
Oh, God, yeah. So, hey, don't we have a movie to talk about at some point?
It's called Mark Moves to Somerset. It's a
great, that could be a carry-on film. It's Carry On Mark in Somerset.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds good to me.
So what movie did we do, Mary?
Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. I think it should have been the Wolfman Meets Frankenstein, because it was more Wolfman oriented than Frankenstein.
It was originally, because the whole thing was done as a joke, because the writer Kurt Siodmak was in a canteen one day, and he was joking on and said, "Oh, let's make a movie, Frankenstein Meets the Meat Man," or something like this. And because there was meatballs on, and the guy looked at him, and he just went, "What?" And he said, "Meets the Meat Man." And he just went, what do you mean Wolfman meets the Meat Man? He said, "Oh, it's just a joke." And anyway, so silence. And then he said, "Have you got anything planned?" He said, "Oh, I need to buy a new car, and I can't afford it at the moment." He said, "Right, okay, here's the money for the car." Right? And here Sodman went, "Right, okay." And literally went out, bought the car, and the guy who ran Universal said, "Did you buy the car?" And he said, "I did." And he said, "Right." He said, you said Frankenstein wolfs the meat man," which is what he actually said as a joke. And he said, "Yeah, that was just about the meatballs." And he said, "Right, you were seriously going to now mean Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. And if you can write that car's yours." And he did it, and he wrote it off the cuff straight from there. So that's how we got Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, because originally it was Frankenstein wolfs the meat man. It was a joke. Quite incredible. One of those lovely Hollywood, stories. It's quite interesting. But Kurt Siodmak is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful writer. And of course, he gave us the classic, which is in here and changed in here, because obviously in the Wolfman, it's, even a man who is pure at heart and says his prayers by night will become a wolf when the woodbine blooms and the autumn moon is bright. And in this, it's when the moon is full and bright.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they changed that. It was very strange that they changed it in this film, because that is at the opening of the film, which, Nick, I'm sure you agree, the opening of Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman is one of the best in fact, I think it is the best opening 10-15 minutes of any Universal horror film.
Yes.
I would agree.
The sets are amazing. Where they go to the cemetery, that's absolutely incredible. It's genuinely spooky, where they go to dig out and he hasn't decomposed and they say Wolfbane. But of course he wouldn't have decomposed because the werewolf never died. He's Lawrence Talbot. He hasn't died. He can't die.
Yeah.
You know, and so it is beautifully shot. The music by Hans Zimmer is incredible, but that whole scene is magnificent.
I know.
And I've got to tell you that. So the reason I've become the person I am, and I, you know, and the absolute anorak and whatever you want to call me that I am when it comes to monster movies, is because when I was about 5 years old, I walked into our flat's living room where we were living in Newcastle, and I looked up, and on Saturday morning TV, there was Lon Chaney as a Wolfman jumping across sacks. You know, when he's the policeman scene where he's got all the houses where they're down the quayside and there's all the big sacks that he jumps from to and what have you. And I looked up and I saw that, and I froze, and I just went, what is that? And I sat down and I went, this is the movie that turned me into the absolute monster kid that I am. And that scene is the scene that changed me for life. I thought it was amazing. So even though Frankenstein became my favorite of all the Universal, you know, along with the creature, the Wolfman is the one who instigated everything.
Wow. And see, the Wolfman now, obviously the Wolfman's my favorite of the Universal monsters, but, you know, the one thing about the Wolfman, I've never, and I understand his desire to end the curse, but it's not, I'm going to find a cure for the curse. I'm going to find, it's just kill me.
Yeah.
Kill me. I want to die.
Yeah,
kill me.
I can never understand that either. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh my God, you know, just don't watch this film if you've ever had suicidal thoughts, because it's, you know.
Well, wasn't he the spoiled second son of the family?
Well, yeah.
So that's why he would want to just end it all. He wouldn't want to, you know, go through the.
Yeah, well, his father killed him, didn't he? Or so he thought. But you know, and which I love the fact. If you watch this again, everyone dismisses this as, you know, another one of the quickies. There is so much more to this film, and the fact that when he's in the hospital, he says, your skull's broke. Now that is a direct reference to when his father hits him with his silver cane, when Claude Rains hits him with his silver cane in The Wolfman.
Yeah.
You know, and as you quite rightly said, Mary, this is the first of the you know, the monster bashes. This is the first time two Universal monsters had ever appeared together.
Mm-hmm.
But what gets me about this whole film is it rattles along. There is you cannot ever get bored in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, because, you know, you've got in 114 minutes, which is all it is. It just everything happens. Within the first 13 minutes is when the Wolfman, Lon Chaney, falls through the graveyard and into the frozen chamber beneath where the castle was. That's in 30 minutes. You're already there.
Yep. Really?
And wonderful scene where he's in with all the ice and lying in the river, and then, you know, gets, you know, Frankenstein, which obviously you can see really, really isn't Bela Lugosi. It's Gil Perkins. Yeah. And it's worth mentioning it, Mary. You know, you said before that you felt very sorry that Lugosi was, hardly, all his scenes were cut. They weren't cut. What they were doing, what they did was some of them, a lot of them were, but they were just basically silenced. And you can see a couple of scenes where he actually is saying something. But the reason why it was all cut is because there are many surviving stills of the monster talking to Talbot, and what happened was the scene after where he finds him and he bangs the ice down, and then automatically cuts to him going through the castle, saying, "I know where do you know where the father's records are kept?" Which is nonsense, because as you rightly said, he's blind, he can't see anything, and in the original story, he was blind, and the reason he was blind is because exactly how he was at the Ghost of Frankenstein, he was Bela Lugosi. It was perfect continuity because he did have, Ego's brain in his head. Mm-hmm. So therefore it makes total sense that Bela Lugosi played there and spoke. But the reason that they cut it was because they said, because it was the height of World War II, they actually said that the scenes with Lugosi, that it was too warlike, because he said, "I want to take over the world," and in his sort of Germanic accent, it really didn't sound very good. And the studio executives, everyone says that everyone laughed at Lugosi speaking. That's not entirely true. The dialogue was cut because the studio executives were horrified, because when he comes out in that Germanic accent and he says, one of the lines that were cut out was, "I will take over the world." Yeah. Frankenstein's movie, "I will take over the world." It sounded too much like Hitler and his rhetoric. So that's why they cut all of that out. Yeah, it wasn't because everyone laughed, because he'd already spoken. in Bela Lugosi's voice at the end of the previous film. But it's fascinating to know that they did that. But yeah, so they did cut so many great scenes, like this one where they're sitting around the campfire and discussing what happened. But even with those put back in, it makes no sense. So the first thing, if you ask a child, even today, especially when I was a kid, if you had have asked one of your friends to be Frankenstein, the first thing they'd ever do was extend their arms out.
I know.
Walk like that. Yeah. The only person who ever really did that was Bela Lugosi. And the reason he stuck his arms out was because he was blind. Yeah. So when he was walking around, so he could feel in front of him. But that, even to this day, if I ask Xanthi and Mauve now, say, do Frankenstein, they do that. They do Bela Lugosi. Even though Glenn Strange played it more, even though Karloff played it more, what have you, Lugosi, who isn't the strongest Frankenstein, let's be honest, you know, quite literally, because that's why he had to Gil Perkins to do all of his lifting and stunt work. That's the people it's the version everyone does, and it's quite fascinating, I always think. But by the time all of the scenes were altered and cut and what have you, it's unbelievable. So Bela Lugosi, have a guess how long he's on screen in the movie.
Like 6 minutes or something?
It's under that, believe it or not. It's 5 minutes, 6 seconds.
Okay, wow.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
You know, and the rest of it is Gil Perkins doing all of it. But, you know, it's really interesting because a lot of people have forgotten the fact that, you know, it wasn't just Gil Perkins. So in stills, and especially in, you know, many of the real art re-releases, when you see the Frankenstein monster, it's Gil Perkins, not Bela Lugosi. Yeah, only a few publicity stills were actually Bela Lugosi and Lon Chaney, because Lon Chaney was also doubled by Eddie Parker. So when they have that massive fight at the end, that's not Lon Chaney. He couldn't have done that. He was only in his mid-30s, but he would never have been able to do that. So that's Eddie Parker, and he didn't get any credit whatsoever. So, you know, the stuntmen seem to have nearly as much time on screen, because that's quite an extended and really good fight, than the main actors did. It always reminds me, it's the horror version of the great fighting from Russia with Love between Red Grant and James Bond, because that's the highlight of that film, where they're on the drink out. And this, you know, in like House of Dracula and all this kind of stuff, it's all over very, very quickly. But this is a proper punch-up and jumping on each other and throwing things at each other. It's great, you know, and not only is because it was the one that set me on the road to you know, being an absolute monster kid. I just love this film. And of course, like many things at the time, it was directed incredibly quickly. In fact, it was directed in and around this time of year. I think it was shot on October the 12th, just through to November the 11th. Imagine that, just over a month, just under a month to shoot this. It's, you know, and then it was released in March of 1943. But, you know, all of that is amazing. And while we're talking, we really should touch on the director, Roy William Neill. Have you got any notes on him, Mary?
No, actually, I don't. Right. He hasn't really.
Roy William Neill is one of the most underappreciated directors. He was an incredible director. And he made, in 1943, he made 5 films. He made Sherlock Holmes in Washington, Sherlock Holmes Faces Death, and my favorite Sherlock Holmes movie, which is this Sherlock Holmes versus Spider-Woman, which is an amazing film. And he also made a movie called something Rhythm of the Islands or something, which was a musical. So he made all of those movies in this year that he did it. And, you know, he died of a heart attack just 3 years later when he was coming to see his sister. He walked through the door in London and fell over. And it was the house he was supposed to be buying. It's really sad. So he came over to look at the house in London that he was supposed to be buying, walked onto the threshold and dropped dead of a heart attack. So very, very, very sad. Wow. But he's like Edgar G. Ulmer. He can do wonderful things with no budget at all. And when you look at the opening with all those sets and everything, it's incredible. And when they have the festivities, you know, the Songs of the Wine, that there was built on the Universal lot as well, and had 500 extras. Remember, you know, he had no money, and he did this. And unlike, you know, there's a lot of movies at the time would always, like Abbott and Costello movies would all have a song in them. Phantom of the Opera was a musical at this point, you know, and none of these are really good. Sometimes the Abbott and Costello films had a decent song in it, but you've got to, I'm sure everyone agrees that fa la 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 lee is the greatest songs in a horror film. I mean, it's just brilliant. In fact, so much so that when I met you guys to go to Monster Bash, they had the Festival of the Wine song there, didn't they? And everyone sang it at Monster Bash.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I think they still do that pretty much every Monster Bash.
Yeah.
So.
I'll tell you what, if it's either worth inserting in now or leaving it till the end of the cast, but we've got to have that in because it's truly, truly great. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's just once you hear it, you're never going to forget it.
I think it'll fit nicely at the very end of the podcast, so we'll put it in there.
Do you remember when we did These Are the Damned? And there was that black leather, rock, rock, rock.
Oh,
now, that's another song which you can never get out of your head. Once you hear it, you never get it out of your head for the rest of the day. Fa la 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 lee is just another one of those absolute gems. But yeah, he's an amazing director, Roy William Neill. And it's such a shame that he doesn't get more credit. I found an amazing bit of interesting triv on him, that he was born on a ship which was sailing around the coast of Ireland, and the captain of the ship was his own dad. That's pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's cool that he was a director that was able to transition from the silent era into the more modern era film with sound. I mean, that there were a lot of folks, actors, directors, whatever, could not make that jump.
That's true.
Right. Because it was such a different, people don't think about it, but it was so different. When you went to talkies, that was just, challenging. But he did he made the leap very successfully. And he was cranking out movies like a madman in the 40s.
Yeah, well, so. Five that year. That's incredible. That's
and he did 3 and 42. And 3 and 40. And bear in mind, this was also during the war. So it's like, wow. Just being able to produce all this with the limited resources, because let's face it, not a lot of the resources were going to film production during World War II. There was the stuff was going elsewhere. Everything was being rationed, and they still managed to just crank out the films.
Yeah. It's the same as Kurt Siodmak, the writer. Let's remember, World War II, he was an immigrant Jew who actually fled when he heard the rumblings of what the Nazi Party were doing. So he came from there, and thank goodness he arrived in Hollywood to write all these amazing movies, which is why perhaps some of the dialogue did have that rhetoric. But he was interviewed just before he died, and he was saying, what else can you remember? He said, well, there was the big fire scene, but he said, I also wrote some jokes in there, which they didn't like at all. And that one of the first things around the campfire, and it's all written down this, they said the Wolfman was talking to the monster, and he says, I change into a wolf at night. And the monster then turns around and goes, are you kidding? And he said he wrote that in on purpose, but of course that got completely taken out, and the directors and the producers weren't very happy with him for doing that kind of thing. But you've got to look at it. But it's an amazingly quick film, and as I said, it just rattles along at 114 minutes. It's fantastic.
Well, and one other thing about the film, and you notice this as you're watching the different films that feature the Wolfman. So Jack B. Pierce did the special effects for this film as well, or the makeup effects, more to the point. He didn't do the little miniature castles and all that stuff, but he did the makeup effects. And the transition into the Wolfman, they do the classic dissolve where they just have him lay real still and add more and more of the makeup to him. They do that once. That makeup was using a type of yak hair that they would get from China. And this was during World War II. Oh. They were having a harder and harder time getting that special hair. And they didn't want to use something else because it really made the mask look different. The makeup. And so as you watch the movies that have the Wolfman in them through the 1940s, you will notice that they show less and less close-ups of the face, but also they kind of don't show like the feet in this one, things like that, because they were trying to be very conservative with the makeup they had, because they wanted to keep that hair for doing future movies and such.
Yeah.
So,
and Jack P. Pierce used to come in and trim it. But you know what the horror story behind that was? And Lon Chaney said this in many interviews, and especially in the 50s, because he was interviewed a lot, when the monster movies started to come back into vogue, that Jack P. Pierce and him really didn't go on too well. Because Jack P. Pierce was literally, he's a genius, but he had to be a perfectionist. So everything had to be right. So when you see the first Transform, which I actually asked John Carpenter, I said, "What's your favorite werewolf transformation once?" And he said, "Oh, the one in Frankenstein Meets The Wolfman." And I think it is the best transformation in any of the movies, even in Wolfman. This is the best transformation where he's on the pillow. That pillow is concrete. That's why it doesn't move, because obviously if you're going to lift your head off and put it back, it's going to move ever so slightly.
Yeah.
They had to, the amount it takes, and then he would come in and then add more and add more and add more. It took 22 hours to film that scene.
What?
Right? And Lon Chaney would say, don't even ask me about the toilet. He said, I don't even want to go there. And they said, well, that sounds right. He said, it wasn't the worst thing. He said, when they were doing my hands, they used to get these tiny little needles and they used to hammer them through the loose skin at the end of my hands. What? So my hands could, so my hands could not move. And they used to put these, like, what you get for acupuncture? They used to get ones as thin as that. So it didn't, it wasn't going to, but if you push your finger up under your thumbnail or your fingernail, it's loose. They used to hammer these little nails through there so his hand wouldn't move. So when the transformation scene, he couldn't move. So that's when they added the hands in the face and everything like this. That's how painful it was. Imagine that.
That's insane.
Absolutely.
Do you mean he actually laid there for 22 hours and didn't get up?
Couldn't go to the toilet. Couldn't do anything. Yeah. And Jack P. Pierce, so that one transformation scene took 22 hours. There's an amazing couple of books, actually. If you ever want to read more on that and just what it was like making these movies, there's a fantastic, you'll know him, Nick, is a guy called Gregory William Mank, who's won so many awards.
He's at the Monster Bash all the time.
Yeah, he's great. Now, he wrote a book called It's Alive, and it was called The Classic Cinema Saga of Frankenstein. And he gives a synopsis, but then all of these amazing stories, because he interviewed all these guys while they were alive in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, in the 60s and 70s. So he's got amazing stories. And the stuff that he's got in these books is great. The other great book on it is a one called Monster Movies of Universal Studios, and that's by a gal called James L. Nebar. And they have great, and it's a small book, but they are literally packed with information about the filmings and how well they got on, and what the stories were and what a nightmare it was. And I mean, the stories like obviously by this time Bela Lugosi and Lon Chaney were both very bad alcoholics. But Bela Lugosi was a huge professional and would never be seen to be drinking anything. But he used to put his favorite was whiskey and beer. So people thought he was just having a beer, but it was like whiskey and beer. But Lon Chaney used to carry a flask with him all the time. And when it got to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, literally you couldn't film anymore because he was so bladdered. And one of the scenes, he came up behind Bela Lugosi, who by this time you've got to remember had already been into rehab and everything like this. He was quite frail. He was in his 60s. He basically been through the mill when it comes to narcotics and everything as well. And Lon Chaney came up behind him and tried to lift him over his head, which didn't go down very well. Wow. So they never got on at all after that. And then when they made a movie called The Black Sleep later on, they really were at loggerheads. But a lot of people loved Lon Chaney, but obviously he was well known for hitting the juice, so to speak.
Yeah, I think even when he was doing, because I know I was talking to Beverly Washburn about working with him during the filming of Spider Baby.
Right. Yeah.
And this was one of the later films that Chaney did, when his career was really, when he was doing just about anything he could get. And he did Spider Baby, and she said he was an amazing guy to work with. But one of the things, he was always eating oranges on the set. And why was he always eating oranges on the set? Because he would inject them with vodka.
Oh, my word.
Wow.
Yeah. So he would shoot vodka into the oranges, and that way he could he'd just be eating oranges, and, he'd have water. It wasn't water, it was vodka. But yeah, he was 4 or 5 sheets to the wind when he was filming a lot of the stuff in Spider Baby. And the thing is, he was I guess the best way to put it was a functioning alcoholic, because, with that, he did that, but he was still able to get all the scenes done. And, he had a lot of pain in his later life, a lot of health issues, a lot of it attributable to drinking. But at the same time, it's one of those situations where if he wasn't constantly liquored up, he'd be useless. So, he used to eat the oranges when he was supposed to not be drinking.
Yeah.
So that was his secret.
Well, while we're on it, we might as well touch on the other, lead. Obviously, Bela Lugosi. Anyone who's listening to this cast will know who Bela Lugosi is, and we just touched on where he was here. And you're right, Mary. It was very sad because when he did Dracula, he turned down Frankenstein, and he said, "What?" And the words he used was, "Why would I play a walking scarecrow?" And obviously, it was one of the huge things, regrets. And at the time, he was living in a little house opposite Universal Studios, and his wife had to say, "Look, you've got to just take whatever you can get." But he was given the most amazing role in Son of Frankenstein as Igor, which is his best role. He's better as Igor than he is as Dracula. He is Dracula. Don't get me wrong. He is Dracula. Even Christopher Lee. But Igor is his best role. And he went from that, and then he was doing, playing butlers and stuff in later life, and doing, poverty row movies. But this was his last chance, and his wife said, "Look, you've got to go and do this film. You've got to be Frankenstein because." We need the money by this time. And it's really quite sad. And it was his fourth wife. But, he did it, but it made perfect sense, as I said before, because his brain had already been given to the monster. So it could have been great. And I just wish they could find this, it's like the spider pit in King Kong. People are still looking for this amazing scene. And I think if we could only just find, these missing scenes, I would love to see them. I mean, to be honest, it's not saying that we won't ever, because there's been loads of things found. I mean, they've found several parts of Metropolis, which were missing for, decades and decades. So it will happen. Look at the Wicker Man. They found loads of the Wicker Man. Roger Corman had a full version of it in his vault. Wow. So, it will be around, but we're just hoping that it hasn't, because of all the years that have passed, it's, falling apart at the seams sort of thing, which is a shame. But, I hope they can find it. We touched on Dwight Fay, who's ended up playing, bit parts in it. As I said, he was Renfield and Dracula, and he died just after this film. But, he was Carl in Bride of Frankenstein. He should have been given more. He really should have been given more. And it's such a shame that, he died as quickly as he did, really, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a tragic tale, so to speak. But, that's like with a lot of these guys, the guys who are playing, Lestrade in the Sherlock Holmes movies were obviously brought into this, as a rolling stock company, because obviously directors, as Tarantino does now, have favorite actors, and you are going to be bringing in people who you think are going to be great in the role. So because Roy William Neal was directing the Sherlock Holmes films, he could say, right, he was absolutely brilliant in the film I've just done, so I'll bring him in. He's perfect for this part.
Dennis Hoey.
So it's quite good that they could do that. But it's really funny because Iona Massey, who's the main woman in it, it's a strange story because she was one of those people that were brought in, and she was supposed to be the new Dietrich, and obviously she sounds like Marlene Dietrich, she looks like Marlene Dietrich, and what have you, and she was taken on initially because the head of the studio was kind of obsessed by her, and she was doing a dance, and oops, what happened? But her top fell off. And then she got a contract on the back of it, which lasted for several years. She didn't do many movies, but, she did she did Invisible Agent, I think, in this one. But she was a striking woman, and quite beautiful. And that beauty spot was real, which is quite interesting to point out because, normally those things are glued on, but her accent and everything she was so perfect in this role. She really was absolutely fantastic. But did you pick the nice little reference about her name?
Elsa.
The Baron's name? Yeah, Elsa. As in?
Elsa Lancaster.
Yeah, Elsa Lancaster, the Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a nice little touch.
Yeah.
And obviously we've got, you've got amazing, stock actors, as we say. My friend wrote a book on Lionel Atwell, and it was not Ronda nominated, Neil, and he's an amazing actor, of course. But at the time, this was it's a bit like it is now. It's a bit Me Too, because he was literally in court while he was filming this because he'd had a huge orgy at his house where he was told that the pornography was so bad and what have you. And he used to watch all this orgy from a room upstairs and what have you. He was actually in court and he was sentenced to 4 years in, suspended jail because he was making this film. But then obviously never ended up going to jail because he was constantly working in Universal movies in these movies. And he said that without these Universal horror movies and the braveness of the studio, he would never have acted again. Of course, he was never implicated in doing any of the acts that supposedly that happened, but because it was in his house, he was forever lambasted and used to call him Pinky, because of all of the stuff that he used to do when it came to orgies. But I think he was quite the lad of the time. But obviously, Me Too is mirroring that kind of thing now because you hear about all the stuff coming out now about relevant actors who've been filming this, that, and the other. So it's quite amazing that even then in 1942, when this supposedly happened, 1943, this was still happening then. It's quite amazing, really, when you think about it.
I always wonder if it really happened.
You think he was set up?
No, I think it really happened, and he's just lying about it.
It really did happen. Neil said he was, he had certain proclivities, which were quite unbelievable. And they were called the Yugoslavian orgies at his house. And so, but let's not dwell on that, shall we? But,
I don't know. There could be a whole podcast just dwelling on that.
Yes, seriously.
I should get my mate Neil on because he did the most amazing book on Lionel Atwell.
What's the name of it? Do you remember?
Sorry, say it again.
What's the name of the book?
Lionel Atwell, and it's something like not the Haunted Genius, but the Tainted Genius. I think it's something like that, but I'll find out for you. But it's by Neil Pettigrew, and he did lots of stop motion movies, and he's a good friend of mine. I went to the Ray Harryhausen event with him, and he's an absolute authority on these movies. And funnily enough, this month, Nick, there's something you really like. It took me when I wasn't very well, and while lockdown was on, Neil and I spent a year photographing his movie posters. He's got the most amazing movie poster collection. And he's got the biggest in the world of Thai movie posters. You've never seen anything like it. And Thai movie art is so different to our art. I mean, it's really quite graphic. You cannot believe, some of the stuff in there. And it took me a year of photography. It shows how many. We shot over, I think it was 800 images or more for this book. And they're coming out in a book this month called Thai Movie Art. And it is right up your Straza.
So I'm gonna have to get a copy of that right away. No, sir, you said it's coming out in October, November, or
October, end of October.
Oh, awesome!
It's the essential book on it, and it's got a huge forward on. And then he talks about Neil when he made his money, in the 90s from computers, as everybody did. He decided, right, I'm going to go around the whole of Malaysia and Thailand and try and find all of these amazing artists. And he would find them in tiny villages and interview them and then say, have you got any artwork? And they would have this artwork. He'd buy the artwork. And then he would find out where the local cinemas were in Thailand, and some of them were in swamps and stuff. And he would literally be given access to these old places that were falling down full of damp. But he rescued all of these movie posters, shipped them back to England. And most of them are the only copies in the world that are left.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's an incredible story, and I recommend hugely checking this out because I mean, I took them. I couldn't believe what I was looking at, and I thought, wow, what on? And it's across the genres. It's Bond, it's horror, science fiction, soft porn, you name it. He's got the lot, and by all these incredibly famous artists. It's an incredible book.
Wow. Okay, I just googled him.
Yeah.
The Lionel Atwell one is called Lionel Atwell, the Exquisite Villain.
That's him. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
And the other one is Templed Out.
Yeah, Templed Out. That's a book. That's a novel he wrote. But he also wrote The Art of Stop Animation as well.
Yeah. The stop motion.
Stop motion. They've been nominated for loads of awards, not just Rondos, everything. He's been nominated this, several times. But he's a lovely guy, and I go around here. So when I did that, he paid me in movie posters for doing that, which I loved.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, which was not that I ever asked for any money. He just offered them to me, and of course I'm not going to say no because they're so bloody rare. I'm not going to turn them down. But yeah, the
Seriously.
Terminator was exquisite. I mean, it's amazing artwork. The Nightmare on Elm Street ones are amazing. So yeah, once into movie posters are a horror and they want to see a completely different take on anything like that, dig that book out. It's awesome.
Wow.
I'll see if I can find it and put a link to it in the show notes, because I think the listeners, you can probably
I'll get you one for Christmas because it's awesome.
Oh my God, thank you. Seriously.
Wow.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, okay. Now, carrying on talking about the people, I mean, we've got, and I'm going to butcher her last name, but Maria Ospinskaya.
Very good.
Yeah. She's great.
Oh, I love her to bits. And it is so fun that they got her back to be kind of the she's the thing that ties the two movies together. Because, because he's like, I need to die. Well, the only person who can help you die would be Dr. Frankenstein, which, okay, he helped bring dead back to life, but sure, he has an intrinsic understanding of life and death, so sure, he can help him die. I'd be looking for something to cure me rather than just to kill me and let me go back to Death's sweet embrace. But
anyway, I can go out, without turning into wolf. But Maria Ospinskaya, she's an amazing actress, and she was a huge star in Russia at the time, And it was like we'd have Dame Judi Dench. That's how she was to the Russians back in the day over there. She was a very, very famous actress, and but it's amazing. So we were talking before about how Lorna Massey was taken on as a star, but she was actually a ballet dancer, believe it or not, when she started. So she was like top of the draw ballet dancer. So it's amazing. All these people have so much interest, interesting backgrounds before they started appearing in these films.
I can't believe she actually worked under Stanislavski.
Yeah, Stanislavski.
That's the whole method actor thingy. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing.
He did. Marilyn Monroe did. Marlon Brando. Everyone studied Stanislavski.
Wow, yeah.
But she actually studied under him, not read a book. It was quite amazing.
And
that's the really cool thing with her.
Yeah.
And I got to say, okay, when you're watching Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, watch her character, how she watches everybody during the scenes.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things that I think is just that's amazing acting, because she isn't saying anything, but you can see the way she's looking at them during these scenes. It's just, oh wow! I really love her in this film. I like her in this more than I do in The Wolfman, actually.
I do,
but
it's got funny. The Wolfman is a nigh on perfect horror film. It's beautifully done, but it's like my go-to movies are not always the ones that are seen as the classics. I love Ghost of Frankenstein. I truly love that one, but Frankenstein, the Wolfman, it's just so great. And I would tend to watch it above The Wolfman. Even though The Wolfman is an absolute classic, don't get me wrong, it's great. But this is just amazing how it just powers along. There's so much happens in this film. It's just great. If you've got an hour and 15 minutes to spare, this is the movie for you. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And it's interesting because it's funny because he's called Talbot. And the one thing that I loved around here, so when we were looking around this area, sorry to go back to it, but we were looking around the area, and we found our favorite pub, and it's a very high-end pub, but it's called the Talbot, believe it or not. And the pub's logo is a wolf's head. How cool is that?
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're going there next weekend to get something to eat because it's just too cool not to do that.
No, that is wow. Yeah, I would have to go to the Talbot.
Was it always
awesome.
Called that, or did they just?
It's always
do
been
it
called the
because of
Talbot.
it?
It's always been called the Talbot, and it's weird because it says when he's in the hospital at the beginning, and it says Talbot was found in Cardiff, Wales.
Mm-hmm.
We can actually the nearest beach to us. If you stand on the beach and you look to your left, you can actually see Wales on a good day.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool that they've got that. But yeah, I always loved that. The fact that there's a pub here called the Talbot and it's there's a wolf's head, so it's pretty cool. I'll get you a beer, Matt.
Oh, please.
We'll go there. We'll go there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh, is there anybody else in the cast we want to talk about? Thinking about that?
I think we've covered most of them there, to be honest. I think,
I was going to say we've hit the main folks, and we've talked. We've talked about Siodmak, and
it's worth noting though when Siodmak was actually writing it, it was originally set in Germany, as in Son of Frankenstein type of thing, but it was supposed to be in Germany, but because of what was going on with the war, he changed it to Visaria, which is a great title.
Mm-hmm.
But do you know what Visaria actually means?
No, what?
It means water place. And obviously, Visaria is water place because the whole thing is built on a dam. And that's what is the dam. Talk about integral things in the film. The dam is what powers the monster and also destroys the monster. So the fact that it's called Visaria, there are so many levels and layers to this film that are just, go over the head. But it's so well done, and I love the fact that Visaria is translated to water place. I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Well, and that's a little detail that they didn't have to go into, but at the same time they did. They went and made that leap. And, I got to say, I am a big fan of miniatures.
Oh, yeah.
I always like a good scene with miniatures, and I just absolutely love the little castle with the dam and the trees around it. It's just like everywhere you stand, apparently, in that village, you can look up and see the same view of that particular castle. And, that's because they built it on one set. But,
the way it collapses is brilliant, because it really reminds me at the end of I mentioned the Golden Voyage of Sinbad, where the temple collapses. Ray must have seen this film because it collapses so brilliantly. It's such a great model, and you can see every little stone's been put in there, and you can see the stuff coming from the inside of the castle as well. It's such a great shot.
Oh.
I love that.
And I hadn't thought about that, but for Sinbad, that would have been that's. Okay, there's just so many.
I'd love to have asked him about it because he did like the Universals, but the way it falls apart is stone by stone, and it's pretty much identical. It's pretty great. But the other really interesting, which we must touch on before we go into the synopsis, is the fact that obviously this film, they didn't think, even though Lon Chaney, who used to go mad and didn't want to be called Lon Chaney, wanted to be called Lon Chaney Jr. and what have you, or Crichton, as his real name was. Hadn't really taken off the way they thought, so they were going to really, really push him. So this whole film was originally a vehicle for Lon Chaney to become a superstar, because he was supposed to play the Wolfman and Frankenstein, because obviously he played both. He played the Ghost of Frankenstein, he played the Wolfman, which he always affectionately called his baby. But he was, but the budget simply wouldn't allow it, and it was just the stand-ins, everything. It was on the shooting schedule they had, which I just said was about a month. They couldn't do it properly, so it would have taken too long. So that's when they got Lugosi in. But it's interesting to note that it was written specifically for Lon Chaney Jr. to actually play both roles, which would have been really interesting, I think.
I think it would have been interesting too, and it would have made it. There's some of the interaction scenes between Talbot and the monster that it would have been. They would have had to film them differently, obviously, because you would have had to have a stand-in as one, and you'd be seeing the back of their head or whatever. But some of those interaction scenes were just really amazing. I mean, when he finds the monster and he's digging him out and he befriends the monster, and I try to be careful and say the monster, because what I really, and yes, I'm being a perfectionist, but it really annoys me when they say the monster was Frankenstein. It's like, no, it's Frankenstein's monster or his creation.
Yeah.
And we won't get into the whole, well, maybe Frankenstein was the monster, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
There's just one little tidbit which I find amazing, that I found out that Chaney actually appeared as Frankenstein in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Did you know that?
Yes. He is the only actor that's ever done all four Universal characters.
Do you know how he appeared in Abbott and Costello, which is obviously a Glenn Strange?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how he's in there?
No, tell us.
Right. If you watch Frankenstein, Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein, there's that great shot where he throws the lady out of the window at the end through the laboratory window.
Yeah.
If you watch it again, you'll see that Glenn Strange he lifted her up properly and threw her out because she was a stunt woman. But because he had those ridiculously high boots on, he went over on his ankle and broke his ankle. Right, and you can see it on the actual movie, even in the trailer. I think it's in. You can see his leg goes over, but because he still carried on with the scene, but then couldn't walk. So they said, "We've got these scenes. We've got to film these scenes." So Lon Chaney stood in for Glenn Strange as Frankenstein in Frankenstein versus the Wolfman. How cool is that?
Oh my God, that's brilliant. But it makes sense. I mean, he had the had the chops. No pun intended.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and I love the fact that young Frankenstein really apes this film as well when it comes to the laboratory. See, there's that wonderful scene where you're talking about expressions where Bela Lugosi's monster looks and smiles because he knows he's being shot.
Yeah.
I always loved that scene. I thought it was great, and that's kind of aping young Frankenstein, and the fact that they do the positive to the negative and the negative to the positive, and that's all ripped off in young Frankenstein because obviously Mel Brooks was a huge fan of this film as well.
Yeah. And one other thing, and it's another one of those little subtle things, but when, Dr. Mannering has connected the monster up to the electrodes and he's doing the energy transfer, there is smoke coming out of that electrode to the left, on the left-hand side of the screen on, I guess, his right side. And I'm watching that, and I think I see sparks flashing in there, and it's like, oh my God, they were really putting juice into that, and that's where the smoke was coming from, I think.
James T. Fulton, who was an amazing guy. He did all the special effects on The Invisible Man and everything. He was a proper genius. He's great. And it'd been funny enough, made a movie with Anona Massey, which is The Invisible Agent, which she didn't like, but I love it. It's great. And it's The Invisible Man Goes to War, basically. But he did all that kind of effects, and they're just great. But the other great thing about it is that when they're talking about when they find the book, and he says he lived longer than 100 people, 100 human beings, and of course the life expectancy then, believe it or not, in Europe was only about 59. This is in recent history. It's quite amazing, isn't it? So we now know that the creature would have lived 6,000 years, which is the only time we can actually work that out in any of the Universal Hammer films. So that's quite good. So we know that without him being burnt or beaten or whatever, he's crushed or put into the ice or whatever's going to happen to him, he's going to be living for 6,000 years. So there you go. So there's still room for sequels yet.
And I feel bad for Talbot because he ends up, I don't know. I just really feel bad for the man. He
was back in the House of Frankenstein, so he's all right.
Yeah. Don't feel too bad for Talbot. He just keeps popping up. He's like a bad penny.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, and they all get washed away at the end of the movie. So, do another one.
Well, exactly. That's it. That is the perfect ending because it doesn't really. I mean, all the villagers are like, "Oh, they're destroyed now."
Yeah.
Well, are they really? And by the way, isn't the village downhill from that? Isn't the village about to get washed away too?
That's what I was
thank you for that.
There's that wonderful, wonderful, wonderful 50s movie called The Monolith Monsters where they do a very similar thing. Remember the stones come out the ground, they keep growing and growing and growing, and then so they burst the dam, they do the same thing. And it's quite similar in that way, but not as obvious because if they're living on a hill like that and they can just stand and watch it, they're going to get soaking for sure.
Yeah, you're gonna have that flood come rolling through, and maybe it'll take out that pub or whatever. I don't know.
Seriously,
you can tell it was written because obviously they've done some research where they've looked at it, and I love the fact they call it the village of Cardiff, and Cardiff is obviously in Wales and it's a city, so it's quite nice that they've got all these little touches that are not quite right, but this area I love, and just everything about this film is kind of perfect to me. And I watched it again, I thought, what, this is definitely one of my favorite Universals. It's so wonderful.
No, it is so much fun, and just the fact that you have Frankenstein and the Wolfman duking it out, and like you said, it's a proper brawl. It's not it's not just some little and then it's over with. I mean, those two really go at it.
They do, and the poster art again. It's just great poster art as well. Just fantastic. The one sheet for this is, and it's one of the most expensive ones you can buy. Neil, what you call him, the director. He always said that he would sometimes just look at a poster or get something in his head and actually make the movie from it, as they did with lots of 50s movies, Roy William Neal. But, the fact that this was, The Monster Meets the Meat Man and all this kind of stuff, the fact that it started out as a joke and then became reality and was a script, and the guy got the car out of it, which was like Night of the Eagle. Do you remember when I interviewed Peter Wingard and I said, he got Night of the Eagle? He said, because I saw this car and I really wanted it. And John Richardson was the same thing. He did movies just so he could keep the car that he drove in the movie. It's just amazing how many cars crop up in these films and how, people will do the work for it. But before we go on, Nick, to what could you talked about one of your favorite transformations and what have you. What are your sort of 3 to 5 top favorite? What do you think are the best werewolf films ever made?
Oh, now see, you've hit me in a sweet spot, I guess. And okay, so as far as transformations go, I have to say my favorite, just bar none, all-time favorite is, John Landis's American Werewolf in London, where you have Rick Baker doing the transformation in a well-lit set. I mean, that's the thing. You have those special effects being done where there is no shadow hiding them. It is just, here are the effects, and you watch that, and here we are, it's 40 years later, and I can go back and watch that movie, and that special effects scene holds up to this day.
Absolutely.
And that is my absolute favorite. Now,
and
I am to say,
we got to stand with John and the actual werewolf, didn't we? In Bob's face, which is cool.
Yes, during that trip to California, which was
we did,
almost a decade ago. But that is by far my favorite. Now, that is one type of transformation. That's the one where you have the physical change and it's seen by the audience. And then you go back to something like the Wolfman, and he's walking between the trees, and as he passes each one, he's changed a little bit more, doing that kind of fade-in change. And I think, and the more I think about it, the more I think you're right. The one in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman is probably the best one of those. Yeah. And, the fact that it was a concrete pillow just makes it even more fun for me thinking about that. And that's a good way to do the transformation.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it with the pins in my fingers, though.
Yeah, well, that part would suck.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to give you one more weird film for my favorite type of transformation, because I'm kind of going through what I consider the 3 main types of transformation. And that is, if you've ever seen The Company of Wolves.
Amazing film.
Yeah, it is such a cool film. And the concept
comes out the mouth.
Yeah, that they just kind of come out of the humans. And that's been used in other films. And most notably, I think, is one of my Halloween staples, the film Trick or Treat. There's a bit in Trick or Treat where they have one of the sub-stories is about werewolves. Yeah. And the werewolves are all beautiful women, and they start stripping off their clothes, and then they just carry on stripping off their skin. And that's how they transform. But yeah, I think that those are the 3 types, and I've just listed my 3 favorite transformation scenes in order.
That's great. But I would agree with you on all of those. The Howling's another good one.
The Howling is a good one, and the story behind that, right, Mark?
Well, I know it was Rick. It was Rick. It was going to be the guy who did The Thing, wasn't it? And
it was Butkin, and he had been working with Rick Baker.
Yeah.
And he had been working with Rick Baker, perfecting the special effects for, American Werewolf in London. Yeah. And he got pulled off to do The Howling because they needed to do that too.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
21. He was 21 when he did that.
Yeah. He was ridiculously young because he'd worked with Carpenter when he was like 19 or something, when he was doing The Fog.
Yeah.
Hmm. But he did those effects, and you can see it's the bones of the effects that Baker did in American Werewolf in London, but it didn't have the polish that Baker's finished work did, and that's why that scene happens in dark shadow, because they use that to kind of mask some of the imperfections with the process. But that's a great scene too. And honestly, of the two, I think the one in The Howling is grosser.
That's
because
the one where
it's
the
got
face...
more bubbling and more, just kind of, it's more raw.
Is The Howling the one where the guy's face like stretches out?
Yeah.
Turns into the wolf.
Yeah.
Well, that could be the Werewolf in London or but the American Werewolf in London is so beautifully done. And the thing that makes it is the fact that it's done to music as well. And the way John uses, Moon, Van Morrison, and the way he uses Blue Moon and stuff like that in that film, it was such a brave move at the time, and it works so brilliantly. I mean, it's truly, truly good. If you listen to Moondance by Van Morrison, you can't help but think about those that scene with Jenny Agutter and what have you. But it's just a wonderful, wonderful, movie, and it gets better with age. Actually, funnily enough, and John would always be asked about the Blues Brothers and Animal House. But now I really, truly think that American Werewolf in London is seen as his masterpiece now, and he's done some good films. I mean, obviously Come to America and what have you, Trading Places. But, American Werewolf in London, it just gets better with age. I mean, two of my all-time top 5 movies are Animal House and the Blues Brothers. So, I'm a bit biased. But when it comes to monster movies, which got it absolutely right, the two best horror comedies of all time, the only two that really absolutely get it spot on are Frankenstein, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, and American Werewolf in London. You get other movies like Fright Night, which are truly great, and deserve to be up there. Monster Squad, that's about, but that's got more sadness than fun in it. But that's the pathos about American Werewolf in London. It's just and it's got tragic stories, within the comedy, but they both complement each other, and that shows to be a great movie. And I think that's down to the actual filmmaker as well, and how they approach stuff, and their knowledge, because John's an absolute walking encyclopedia, as you know, Nick, of movies. Full stop.
Wow.
So you think when you have the knowledge and stuff like this. I mean, I told you that when for years Xanthi Morby used to get Halloween presents off him, because the only reason she got that was because when he came to ours once, he said, "Do you like the Wolfman?" And she goes, "Don't you mean Lawrence Talbot?" And he was so taken back by that when she was 4 that he sent her stuff in the post. And I'll never forget, it arrived from Universal Studios, and I went, "Oh, I wonder what this is." And I said, "Do you mind if I unwrap it?" And there it was. Because it was for her, of course, but I'm just looking after it. That's all.
Yeah.
That's a
good story.
Just keep saying that, Dad.
My favorite he ever sent was when she was really, really tiny, and he said he got something for our dolls, and it was a baby's bottle, and when you turned it up, the milk turned to blood. It was really cool.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Really cool. But there you go.
Wow.
Oh, but thank you for asking that question, Mark, because that's a good question, and
nearly identical to mine as well, Nick. But you're the authority, so I just thought I'd ask you.
No, I'm happy that you have the same thinking, and I'm gonna give one bit of a shout out to a film that does it differently than any of the others.
Is it Brotherhood of the Wolf?
It's Blood and Chocolate.
Oh, Blood and Chocolate.
Have you seen that?
Do you know, it rings a bell.
Okay, it's a werewolf, but it's kind of a love story.
Right.
And I'm not going to spoil most of the movie, but I'm going to say it's very underrated. And it's got sort of a CW, we're all beautiful people kind of feel to it. But I really like it. And the thing is, the way they transform in that is they just kind of jump and they just transform. They shimmer for a second and they transform. And it's kind of a cheat in a way. But at the same time, when I was writing my Werewolf for Hire novels, I didn't want my guy to have to go through a drawn-out transformation because I kind of wanted it to be something that could happen fairly fast. So, he could jump into action, as it were. And, so when I wrote it, I actually made it so that he just kind of, one minute he's a human, the next minute he's a werewolf. There's kind of a magical shimmering. And then I wrote that before I ever saw Blood and Chocolate. And then I saw Blood and Chocolate. I was like, oh my God, they did exactly what I had in my head.
Well, that's interesting.
So,
it does ring a bell, because I remember at the time, Nick, there was a couple of, there was a spit, like there was American Werewolf, The Howling, and what was that other one? The Wolfen came out. They all came out, and it's sort of the same in the early 80s. And there was a time in the 90s where that happened, because I'm sure Blood and Chocolate was a 90s film. Is that right?
It was. I think it was 98, and it came out about the same time as Skinwalkers. And
I'm going to say Skinwalkers, because you had a whole slew of them, and the two that sort of kind of fell under the radar but are now seen as cult classics were Ginger Snaps, which was great.
Yes.
And,
oh my
and
God.
Dog Soldiers. Those two movies really were brilliant. And when you talk about great werewolf films, they need to be brought up, and Brotherhood of the Wolf as well, which is another one. But the Ginger Snaps and Dog Soldiers they came out in around the same time. Very anarchic, brilliant films.
And okay, I am going to stand corrected. Blood and Chocolate was from about 2007, and was Skinwalkers, because that was. They keep coming in little cycles.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Dog Soldiers and the other one, they all came out sort of in the 90s. Then you had the one in the 80s, Wolfen, American Werewolf, London, Howling, what have you. They seem to come out the same. You're waiting for a bus forever, and then two come along at once. So that's the kind of thing it is.
Exactly. And I will say, American Werewolf in London, by far my favorite werewolf movie.
Wow.
American Werewolf in Paris, by far the film I hate the most for werewolves.
Yeah. It's pretty terrible.
Oh my God. It's like they discovered the idea of doing CGI with, Forrest Gump and Jurassic Park. And those films were high-end films that took CGI. And then they got the idea and they made American Werewolf in Paris. And they just, oh my God. I'm sorry, it hurts me physically to think about that movie.
It's terrible, Mary. Don't waste your 2 hours of your life watching that. It's terrible.
Do not.
Seriously, never even heard of it.
Don't bother. Well, I tell you what, there's one that I've had for ages, which I must have had it for 2 years plus or more, and I've never got around to watching it, and I really should if I can find it, obviously, in all this junk. But it's Wolf Cop. I've had it for ages.
Wolf Cop. Okay. Wolf Cop was a movie where they came up with a trailer for it, if I remember the story right, and it was a contest. And the winner of the contest, a theater chain in Canada, would provide something like $1 million Canadian to the production of a film based on the best trailer. And Wolf Cop won it. And so they made this movie, and they do the transformation. And it's done in kind of the Company of Wolves style, where they're taking the skin off.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this is possibly the most disturbing transformation, and it's disturbing and funny at the same time.
Oh.
Okay. Oh. Now, I will say it's Wolf Cop is a unique piece of cinema. I enjoy the hell out of watching it. Don't bother with Wolf Cop 2. There you go. But Wolf Cop is so much fun, and I'm glad you brought that one up.
I never got around to watching it, and I thought I'd ask, because obviously, you should be writing a book, actually, Nick, on your favorite werewolf movies.
Well, here's the thing, Mark. I've got 3 books that I've got on deck to write, and I've actually started on all 3 of them, and I'm going to use the excuse. Work has been too much for me lately. And, I think Mary can attest to this to some degree. I have been traveling. I have spent more time. I've spent 77 nights in hotels this year.
Oh, my word.
Traveling. Yeah. And that's all just work. And the year isn't even over. As a matter of fact, I'm off this next week, but the week after that, I'm going out to LA for 3 days. And then the week after that, I'm going to be in Texas. And my job is very interesting and it pays the bills, but it really, especially the last 5 or 6 years, it has just really been draining me from being. It's really put a crimp in my creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's just having the time. You're exhausted, aren't you?
Well, that's it. And I am hoping that in the next year or so, some of this stuff is going to turn around and I'm going to be able to start writing more. In fact, I'm actually starting to think I may join the Lexington Writers Room, which Fiona's a member of that, and she's on the board, actually. And it's a space where you pay something like $50 a month, and you can go and it's a dedicated building with all these nice nooks and areas where you can just sit and write. And it's very good for the creative process. And I'm thinking I may need to do that because one of my biggest problems is every time I sit down and try and write, I get distracted because of work, because of this, that. And if I can just go there and write, that would be much better for me. So, but anyway, I've gone down a long side story, but watch Wolf Cop.
We did the podcast on it.
Yes, we did. And I enjoy the hell out of Wolf Cop.
I did too.
Yeah.
Is that the one with the donuts?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't spoil the jokes, though, Mary. I have gone out of my way not to spoil stuff for Mark.
Okay.
I normally listen to Cash. I must have missed that one for some reason. I'll check it. I'll watch the movie first, though. Obviously.
Yes.
Yeah. Check out the film first, and it has so many little things in it that you'll like. But
I really did like that.
I'll tell you what, guys. If we do it right, Nick, your synopsis, and then we could probably do the part, and that would take us up to our allotted time that we gave each other.
Yeah.
So it's 12 at the minute. If we rock on, we could probably fit everything in, I would have thought.
I think we can. Okay. So let's see. You ready to go, Mary?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So let's see. We watched Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. And as Mark said, this is one of the opening bit of this film is just, it's absolutely wonderful. I mean, it's first things first. I love the way they do the opening credits in it.
I do. With the test, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's some really fun. And, you're sitting there and you're watching the opening credits and you've got this creepy feel to them. And the film just cuts in, and where do you start out? A wonderfully creepy cemetery. I mean, it's just perfect. And what's right in the middle of it?
I think it's the best set in any universe, and that includes Frankenstein. I think it is an amazing set. It's so atmospheric and looks real as well.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. It looks like you really are there in this creepy-ass cemetery in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And you got these two guys, and at first you don't know who they are or what they're doing. By the way, okay, pausing for a second. We've talked the hell out of this movie, but I'm going to spoil the whole daggone thing. So go watch it if you haven't seen it. And by the way, if you haven't seen Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, shame on you for waiting this long. Now go watch it. Okay. So anyway, so it's the night of the full moon because when you're a grave robber, it is important that you do it on the night of the full moon.
Yes.
Because when you rob the grave of a werewolf and you take away the wolf's bane and everything that's keeping him from coming back to life, he'll be able to just jump right up and kill you right away. So anyway, you got these two grave robbers, and they break into the Talbot family crypt because they've heard that young Larry Talbot, who was just in his 30s when he died, was buried with, money in his pockets and all this silver jewelry and everything. And they've gone to rob him. And they break into the crypt through this little glass window over the door. They climb in. And then he's like, oh, I'm nervous about opening this. He's like, no, it'll just be a skeleton. This guy's been buried for 4 years. So at this point, that's also how they establish how much time has passed.
Yeah.
And, he's like, no, this guy's been buried for 4 years. He'll just be a skeleton. And it won't be weird. And to me, that would probably be weirder. But anyway, they go in and there's all these plants in there. And he's looking at him and he's like, oh my God, he looks like he's just asleep. He has not deteriorated at all. And so they start pulling the wolf's bane out. And that's when one of the grave robbers quotes the poem, even a man who's pure at heart and says his prayers by night can become a wolf when the wolf's bane blooms and the moon is full and bright in this one.
Yeah, they changed.
And yeah, as he's saying that, the other guy's like, yeah, whatever, I'm going to take the ring off his finger. And what they don't notice is the hand starts reaching up and it grabs him. Well, the one that gets grabbed is just like, ah, and his buddy's like, yeah, because there's no honor among thieves. The other graveyard robber just jumps and climbs out the window and he's gone.
Yep.
So cut to somewhere far away, like just outside of Cardiff, I think. Yeah, it's the police in Cardiff. They find this guy laying on the side of the road and he's just like, hey, buddy, come on. Do you need me to take you to the station? You need to go home or whatever. Rolls him over, and there's a bad wound on his forehead. And as, Mark brought up, that is exactly where Lawrence Talbert's dad smashed him in the head with the silver walking stick, right at the end of the Wolfman. So that is his wound. And so they take him to the hospital. And that's where Dr. Mannering comes in. And Dr. Mannering apparently performs a surgery to fix the skull or whatever. But the next day, the nurse comes out and says, Dr. Mannering, the patient's awake. And he's like, what do you mean he's awake? Nobody should be awake after that procedure this quickly. And he's like, no, he's awake. And they go in, and he's just sitting up in bed and talking. And he's like, where am I? And, what's happened? And he tells him who he is, and he says, well, I'm Lawrence Talbert. And there's the chief inspector or whatever's there, and he's like, right, well, I'm going to ask you some questions. He's like, no, you're not. This guy's my patient. You go on. Well, the inspector calls to the town where Talbot lived. And sure enough, they're like, oh, yeah, we know him. He's been dead for 4 years. The chief inspector's like, what? Well, that night, the moon comes out again because, it's a full moon. Every night is a full moon, apparently. And, okay, I'm going to pause for a second. I like to think that the day of the full moon, but also the day before and the day after when the moon is like 95% full, I think those would all count for transformations.
Yes. I do.
So that's how I kind of judge this, because it's the next day. And he transforms, and this is when we have that amazing transformation laying down in the bed. Now, I'm going to give you my one problem that I always have with the Wolfman transformations in these. He's wearing his pajamas when he transforms. Apparently, the Wolfman has a modest streak, so he gets up and puts on a brown shirt, full length, and brown trousers, and then goes out and goes on his killer rampage.
Continuity kind of messed up there, didn't they?
Well, they didn't really mess up, because here's the thing. It works because that creates this illusion of him being kind of completely from head to toe covered in fur. You wouldn't get that same illusion if he were wearing a white shirt, or if he were wearing pajamas. Plus, okay, it's hard to get scared of a Wolfman in pajamas. Let's be honest. Okay. He may still kill you, but you'd be kind of snickering when he came over to kill you. But so the Wolfman, he transforms. He goes out, he kills a constable, runs around. Next morning, they come in and they find him, Talbot, laying on the bed in his pajamas again because he changed. And, the window's open, and they're like, "Oh no, it couldn't have been our guy. This couldn't have happened because he's been here all night." And Talbot wakes up and he's like, "You've got to call the constable. They've got to arrest me. I'm a murderer. I went out last night and killed a man." And yeah, he kind of loses his biscuits there and goes a little bit crazy, and it takes 3 men to restrain him, and they put him in a straitjacket. And Dr. Mannering's like, well, we're gonna hold him for observation because he's still my patient, and but don't worry, we're We're going to hold him. Next day, they go to arrest him, and he is gone because he is broken out. And they later actually describe it as somehow he chewed his way out of the straitjacket. So he transformed again. Okay, cut to a little bit later on. You see Lon Chaney walking through the woods, and he's come upon a gypsy camp, and he's looking for the gypsy lady Maliva, who was the woman who was the mother of the original werewolf, played by Bela Lugosi in The Wolfman. And Talbot believes she is the only one that can help him. Now, why he believes she can help him, I'm not sure, because she couldn't help him in the first movie.
She couldn't help her son.
Yeah, she couldn't help her son, so what's she going to do to help him? But at the same time, he isn't looking for a cure. He is racked with guilt, and this is the only thing I can think. He is racked with guilt about all the death that's gone on, including his father. Because apparently, when the police go to investigate the tomb where Talbot was, because he actually says, well, go check my mausoleum. You'll find there's no body there. And so they do. And they do find a body, but it's the body of the grave robber. And Lawrence Talbot's body is gone. But during that scene, one of the locals, the local constable, says, yeah, his father died of grief soon after. Because they didn't believe it was a werewolf. The people in the town believed it was a monster or a killer wolf or something, and that Lawrence Talbot's dad had accidentally killed his son when he was trying to kill the wolf.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case. It was he killed his son. So anyway, Talbot is out looking for Maliva. He finds her, and she says, there's not much I can do to help you. And she says, but wait. There is one man that may be able to help you die. And that is this doctor that I've heard of who knows more about life and death than anyone, Dr. Frankenstein. And so the two of them get a wagon and a horse, and they head off to Visaria, which is the village where Dr. Frankenstein lives. In this iteration, because we can't have him be in Germany, obviously, because we're right in the middle of World War II. And so in Visaria, Talbot and the gypsy woman go into the first pub they see, and that pub is run by a guy named Vasic. And Vasic, he's this big, burly... I mean, they did a great job casting these people as Bavarians.
Oh, yeah.
Because he looks exactly like what you would expect a Bavarian tavern owner would look like. And he's like, oh, the name of Frankenstein is cursed, and we wish we'd never heard it. You have business with Frankenstein? Well, him and his monster are dead, and there's nothing left but the ruins of the castle, and blah, 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 and get out. Because... this is small town Bavaria, I guess, or Visaria, whatever you want to call it. And they don't cotton to folks looking for the Frankensteins. And so at that point, they go get back in their wagon and they're riding off. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. When you are the Wolfman and you know on the full moon that you are going to transform into a monster.
Yeah.
Maybe you should plan ahead. But no, he never does. It's like all of a sudden he just looks up and, oh, crap, it's a full moon tonight. How did you not know? You've got one job, Talbot, and that's keep track of the cycle of the moon, and you failed. So he jumps out of the wagon and runs away before he can turn into the Wolfman, because he figures he'll just kill Maliva, the gypsy woman, if he's around her. Well, he doesn't kill her, but apparently he rips the throat out of a young girl from the village. And, of course, this being a village where Frankenstein's monster had happened, it's a village in Europe. You know what that means. Mob with torches, shotguns, and all the rest, pitchforks, torches. And they're going to go out and find the wolf that did this. And so they go chasing him. Well, the Wolfman ends up around the ruins of Frankenstein's castle. And he takes a wrong step and he falls in a hole. and ends up falling through the floor and into this frozen cavern underneath the castle. And that's where he finds Frankenstein's monster frozen in the ice. And he doesn't find him until he wakes up and he's back to being Lawrence Talbot. Meanwhile, the villagers found Mileva, the gypsy woman, and they're like, where's that guy that was with you? And again, the legal system in this part of Europe isn't exactly well developed at the time. So they just arrest her and take her off to jail, where they are going to question her. And the way they say question her, I get the feeling they are going to torture her, which, that just makes me a little upset, because she's probably the nicest character in this. She's just all about helping poor old, Larry Talbot. But anyway, they haul her off. Meanwhile, Talbot finds Frankenstein's monster. He digs him out, and he's like, hey, you must know where Frankenstein's journals are. Okay. We understand that this is Ghost of Frankenstein. Igor's brain is inside the monster, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get this. Talbot doesn't know any of this. How's he think the monster knows where anything is? You dig that monster out. My first thought is that thing going to kill me?
Yeah.
Why is it still alive after it was buried in ice for, however many years? So anyway, the monster leads him to a secret behind the bookcase chamber, and there's some books in there, but it's not what he needs. And he's like, oh, this is terrible. And then he does find a locket, or like a cameo or something, that has a picture of Frankenstein's daughter. And he's like, she's hot. I think I should talk to her because she's hot. Maybe she can help me die. And he doesn't say she's hot, but that's the impression we're all getting.
He's so aggressive to her, isn't he? The way he snatches everything off her and talks to her, and she just goes along with it so nicely. Yeah, it's beyond me. It'd never happen now.
Well, think about this. He first off, where does he get his very nice American tailored suit?
Exactly.
I guess he was traveling with a steamer trunk full of American wardrobe, but he shows up in this very expensive, very nicely tailored suit, and he tells the mayor of the town that he wants to buy the ruins of Frankenstein's castle. And so the mayor summons the daughter, the Baroness Frankenstein, and she shows up looking like $1 million, by the way. This was back when, the Baroness did not travel anywhere without wearing, a small fortune in pearls and these designer gowns and dresses and everything. But she shows up and he's like, can you leave us alone for a few minutes, Mayor? And the mayor's like, oh, sure, I'll leave you alone. Well, she says, so you want to buy the house? And he's like, no, I don't want to buy the house. I just told the mayor that because I needed to meet you and this would lure you here. Okay. Modern sensibilities, there's a hell of a lot of red flags going off there. Yeah. And at this point, most sensible women would be like, excuse me, I have to go get the sheriff and some guys with pitchforks. And no, she's just like, oh, really? Well, you must have something very important to talk to me about then.
In real life, though, the most worrying thing was Lionel Atwill had left the room. He's probably gone to another one to film and hope something would happen.
Yeah, he's got a peephole and he's in there.
That's the most worrying thing about it. Yeah, of course I don't mind leaving you.
Yeah. So anyway, she says, I'm sorry. He tries to explain that he needs her dad's work. And she's like, sorry, even if any of my dad's journals had survived, we would have burned them because he was a brilliant man, but everything he did brought nothing but pain and suffering to the world. And Talbot's like, oh, gee, Mary. He always gets this kind of, oh, shucks kind of sound to him. It's like, I just want to die. And, you got to help me die. And he goes through this, and she's just like, oh, I'm sorry. Well, Lionel Atwill comes back in. And he's like, hey, tonight is the Festival of New Wine. Baroness Frankenstein, why don't you and this creepy American dude be our guests at the Festival of the New Wine? So they are made guests of honor at the Festival of New Wine. And apparently Vazik, the guy who was the tavern owner, has very bad short-term memory because he had just confronted Larry Talbot the night before, or maybe a couple of days before. The time's a little bit fuzzy, but he had just confronted him and kicked him out of the tavern and arrested the gypsy woman, but now he's just like, oh, whatever. And the Festival of New Moon starts, and that's when we have that brilliant song, and the whole town is just singing. And when you listen to the words of the song, it's a little bit creepy because the song's like, hey, you should party now because there won't be any partying when you're dead, da 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 da. And you'll live.
La 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 lee.
Yeah, fa la 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 lee. And you'll be dead for all eternity, da da da, live forever. And and as he's singing this song and he's talking about dying and living forever and all this, Talbot just gets super upset. Because, he hasn't told anybody, but he's got a lot of trigger warnings. And those trigger warnings have to do with living forever. So Talbot's a real downer on the Festival of New Wine. And he starts yelling at the singer, and everybody gets all sad and walks away. Instead of telling him he's being a dick and just telling him to shut up, they get all sad and walk away. But as the crowd parts, there's Dr. Mannering. Dr. Mannering has been chasing Lawrence Talbot all over Europe, apparently. And I'm going to guess that he's been after him for at least 4 months because Talbot says, how did you find me? And he said, oh, it was easy. I just read the newspapers. And he starts pulling out clippings and just saying the names of different towns. And it's obvious that the Wolfman has killed people in these towns. So he's reciting this, and he's like, you need to come back with me. And Talbot's like, you're just going to put me in an insane asylum. And he says, yes, that's where you need to be. And Talbot's like, no, I'll just escape. And I'll be the judge of that. Well, about that time, Frankenstein's monster got bored with hanging out at the ruins of the castle. So he comes stomping into town. And, okay, I know the town was traumatized before, but my God, there were like 500 people there, and they're all acting and running off and terrified when the monster shows up. Talbot, he sees the monster, and he's like, oh, crap, it's him. So he gets up, goes over, and he calms the monster down, puts him in a wagon, and then he and the monster proceed to steal all of the barrels of wine for the Festival of New Wine. So I think that's kind of a dick move, okay, Talbot? You've stolen all the wine from the Festival of New Wine. Well, the whole town rallies around Vazik, the tavern owner, and he's like, we need to go after them and kill them. And Mannering and Baroness Frankenstein are like, no, we can let us go get him. We can get him, and it'll be easy. And there's some interesting bits there because all of a sudden it's like they just remembered that Baroness Frankenstein was a Frankenstein because half the town wants to hang her and Talbot and this new Dr. Mannering along with the gypsy woman. So they end up getting the gypsy woman out. Mannering realizes it's the gypsy woman that Talbot had been talking about. He convinces the town to let him go and he will deal with the monster. And so he and Baroness Frankenstein and the gypsy woman head up to the ruins. They find Talbot and the monster. And they come together in this happy pact because the Baroness actually did know where her father's journals were. They were in a secret compartment inside the secret compartment. So that's double down secret. And, Dr. Mannering is reading the notes, and he's looking at all the equipment. And I'm going to say, when you were a doctor back in the 1930s and 40s, your level of education must have been a lot better than it is today, because he's just glancing at these notes and he's looking at the machines, and he's like, these machines can be easily fixed. And I think I can say, I can use what's in these notes to kill Lawrence Talbot and destroy the monster. okay, so he's figured all this out pretty daggone quick, and he's going to fix it. So, of course, time passes. The villagers are very patient because apparently they wait for almost a month before they start getting their, their britches in a knicker or whatever, because he has gotten the entire castle's lab setup fixed, and he is ready to connect the negative to the negative, or the negative to the positive, and the positive to the negative. And, whatever it is that, the positive to the negative to energize the being with the lifespan of 100 people. Well, instead of doing that, he's going to drain the life. I do what?
I said, I wish you'd come round to my house and fix my electricity up. I tell you, it's taking a minute already. It's taking the same time as he's going to do an entire castle.
I was going to say, this guy's a brilliant electrician.
Seriously.
He's a mechanical engineer. He's a scientist. He's got it all.
Yep.
And there is a little bit of a hint that he and the Baroness are kind of, getting sweet on each other. But they never really formalize that. But then again, in movies like this, there was always that subtext, And so anyway, he decides that he can't destroy the monster. He needs to charge the monster to full strength, because that was where Frankenstein failed. He didn't charge the monster with enough energy to reach his full potential. So rather than draining the monster and draining the Wolfman, he's going to drain the Wolfman and charge up the monster. He starts doing it. The people in the village see the lights flashing. Vazik says, I'm going to blow up the dam. And he takes dynamite and goes up to the dam and starts laying dynamite. Meanwhile, all the people in the village just stand in the courtyard and look up at the lights flashing at Frankenstein Castle. Meanwhile, Baroness Frankenstein, who had made Dr. Mannering promise to destroy the monster, she goes and takes a nap, or goes to bed to get her beauty sleep, during the time when he's going to do the experiment to destroy the monster, which turns out it's the experiment to energize the monster. And as Mark brought up, during this bit where he's being energized, you see the monsters start smiling. And it is so creepy. It's like, I'm getting my juice now. And, so she's yelling at him to stop. And she throws a switch, and whoops, throwing that switch made all the lumber fall out of the ceiling. Can I also say, those were some brave, I don't know if it was the stuntman or if it was Lugosi that was on the slab in that far shot, but that wood that fell out of the ceiling looked like it came pretty close to landing on him. So kudos to him as an actor for not freaking out about that. But
the noise on it as well. The special effects are great because the noise, it sounds like a huge beam's being dropped.
Yeah.
Those stuntmen must have been hurt in this, because the way they're throwing each other around and what have you, it's pretty full on, as we said.
That's it. And okay, so Frankenstein busts loose. Baroness Frankenstein, or Frankenstein's monster busts loose. Baroness Frankenstein does what all good damsels in distress do in these movies. She passes out. That allows the monster to pick her up. Dr. Mannering tries to stop the monster a couple of times, but it just throws him around like a rag doll. The moon is full, because of course we're doing this on the night of the full moon. Talbot escapes, and he goes after Frankenstein's monster. And the two have a big fight. And as you said, they are tossing each other around. They're really going at it. There's one part where the Wolfman has jumped up on some of the machinery, and Frankenstein's monster throws the machine that he's standing on.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very well done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was a brilliant shot. I love that bit.
I love the way they come out of their sort of the harnesses as well, the way they push on them. And it's just such a great, just the whole thing is really well choreographed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's it. And they bust out of those, and they have this great fight. Meanwhile, Vazik has blown the dam. Mannering grabs Baroness Frankenstein, and they go out of the castle. Maybe they get up on high ground. I mean, the fight carries on, and then the water comes through, and it destroys the whole castle. And the villagers think, well, now they're all dead. Okay, I'm going to say Wolfman and Frankenstein, probably harder to kill. And that's good because it sets us up for the sequel, House of Frankenstein. And as for, Dr. Mannering and Baroness Frankenstein, they go off to lead a life of religious fulfillment. I don't know. They don't really mention what happens to them in this one. But what a fun movie. And it's a perfect ending because the film you could just say the film is over and that's the end of them. Or if the film makes money, as it did, you can make a sequel. Brilliant.
Nick, out of interest, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman actually saved Universal in 1943. They were on the edge of bankruptcy. And as Kurt Siodmak used to say all the time, if they were really, really worried about money, they would make another horror film. But this specific film saved, in the same way Tickle Me with Elvis saved Allied Artists, this saved Universal. And it saved the entire company in 1943.
See, and there's been so many things like that. And okay, my favorite story of that is New Line Cinemas was going bankrupt, and they made Nightmare on Elm Street.
Wow.
And that saved New Line Cinemas. So the moral of the story is, if you need money, make a horror movie.
Exactly, yeah. It's happened so many times throughout history. Warner's The Exorcist, it's always the same. It's always, bring in the horror. That's what's going to make us the money.
Yeah. And I mean, look at what films are making money right now. It's the horror movies are making their budgets back.
No.
And Barbie. Barbie's making its budget too, but that's beside the point. No, this was a super fun movie to do.
As I always ask Mary, did you enjoy this one?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it so much. I said I had to go stream Wolfman after this.
Straight after, yeah. And Nick, you actually said to me on an email, this was better than you remembered.
Yes, it was. And that's the thing. I had not watched this film in a long time. And going back and watching it, it was so much fun to just sit and watch this. And I think part of it is I've been watching too many kind of jaded, self-aware modern horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to just get back to the roots on this stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a quality to films made in that period that you just don't get today.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think
it also everything about it is perfect for Halloween as well. The black and white film, the classic monsters, the great music score by Hans Slout, everything about it. And it just runs along. You get some movies which are like 3 hours long these days, and this is an hour and 14 minutes of just nigh on perfection, because it's just about 1, 2. It's like Universal's greatest hits all in one film.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
But the problem is the title. Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. You think it's going to be this hokey kind of stupid comedy thing. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't have thought that, but I do think it should have been Frankenstein versus the Wolfman.
I think it should have been
Wolfman. The original title, Wolfman Meets Frankenstein.
Yeah.
That
would make more sense.
Sometimes titles work, though. I mean, obviously Life Force didn't do very well, and we loved covering that film. But, its original title, Space Vampires, is far better. I think far more people would have gone to see Space Vampires than they went to see Life Force, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, that's it, because they would have known what they're getting.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
You gotta, your name of your film has to give people an idea what they're getting.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess back in those days, since it was the first meeting of two monsters, people wouldn't have had that idea that it was going to be silly. But I think of like Abbott and Costello Meet the Wolfman, or when somebody meets somebody nowadays, I think of it as being sort of a schlocky comedy thing.
Well, as I said to you earlier, Kurt Siodmak said it as a joke.
Well, yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
And it came on, and it's the movie that saved the studio. So, to be honest, it's all perfect in my eyes. I love the title. I love a good schlocky title. The Beast with a Million Eyes. I thought, how the hell are they going to make a beast with a million eyes? And then you realize it's because the alien can see through all the animal's eyes, which I think is genius, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think that's so clever. Yeah. So it's sometimes the title will draw you in, but, that's why they're great. I love a good schlocky title. You know, I do think it works, and you know, and this one is kind of perfect, as is House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula and what have you. You know, but yeah, they're great. They're just wonderful things, and we've got to remember that this is where all the B movies and all the great horror movies started, is with these films. And they'll never go out of fashion, I don't think. I think, you know, especially for younger kids, not so much older kids now, but when you're little and you're about sort of 6 or 7, you'd see this would generally be memorable for you. You know, you'd be quite frightened, especially the opening 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Remember it. In the same way it pulled me in those years ago when I saw, you know, the Wolfman on that canvas. You know, I just love it. There's a guy done a model of it, and I'd really like it for Christmas. I'm going to ask Emma for it, you know, because it just reminds me of being that kid who was completely and utterly drawn into this world because of that one scene and this film. So I've got you know, it holds a special place in my heart. And that's why we wanted to sort of kind of do it. But thank you for doing that, guys. Now, have we got time? We've got 15 minutes for feedback. Have we got enough time?
This first one is from William Hess. Says he's talking about the giant Gia monster. And he says, that was a good little movie. I loved the old hot rods. And for a low buck movie, it was pretty well made as it moved along without dragging. And it did hit every 50s trope, and we old movie fans like cars, rock and roll, radio DJs, and monsters. I also like his movie, Monster of Piedras Blanca.
Yeah, that's a great film.
Good films to watch on late Friday or Saturday night. Guess that means I'm a typical monster kid who never grew up. Join us. Well, thank you, William. And this next one's from Nick Stumpf. It says, hi, Mary. Hope all is well. Sorry it's taken me so long to reach out and say hello. We have a toddler here at home and are expecting our second child in April of next year, so things around here have been hectic. Man. Whew. Contest answer is Wizards from 1977. He just says, how's everything with you? Looking forward to the next cast. And that's from Nick Stumpf from Indianapolis. Boy, he's
a great guy. I talked to him quite a bit on Twitter.
Wow.
Or X, or whatever the hell it's called now.
His next few months are going to be...
Yeah.
Wow. We're thinking about you, Nick. Okay, next one's from Marlo Brown. Says, I'm going to show you a trick that Mom showed me when you weren't around. Says, hi, Mary, Nick, and the gang. The contest photo and the quote above are from Wizards, 1977, by Ralph Baksh. I saw it in the cinema when it came out and have loved it ever since. It's flawed, but I never get tired of the film. It's also one of Mark Hamill's early voice acting gigs.
Yep.
I hope you do Wizards on the Cast sometime. It's a lot of fun. Bakshi's Lord of the Rings is another one that could be featured sometime on the cast. It's arguably a better movie than Wizards and has some scenes, and some scenes were handled better by Bakshi than by Peter Jackson. Wow. All for now. Sappho's hungry and is starting to make threats. Bye, Mary. And he's writing on a Raspberry Pi computer near the haunted borderlands of South Texas. Whew.
Indeed.
Yes. Oh, okay. And he sent another thing because he felt bad about Brian Cunningham on the... Yeah. He says, one more thing. Brian Cunningham does not need to worry about sliding into political comments as a guest of the cast. The podcast I was listening to and quit was reviewing something like Handmaid's Tale and went on a very long group rant about some controversial political topics. And then they ranted some more about how much they hated certain politicians. It was awful. Later episodes were similar, and I gave up on them. The B-Movie Cast has always been a friendly place, and I look forward to hearing from Brian again. He seems like a genuinely nice guy and always has amusing and insightful things to say. He's definitely a great guest. I'm afraid I wasn't clear, and I'd like to apologize to Brian. I hope he understands that I've never been the least bit offended by anything he had to say. I've said it before, y'all have one of the best podcasts in fandom, and I believe one of the reasons is you remember just why we all enjoy these goofy movies so much. And he's by Mary from the banks of the San Antonio River and not far from the haunted borderlands of South Texas.
Oh, and that's sweet that he came back on to say that. And here's the thing. I went back when I was editing the podcast and listened, and I was like, this really isn't being political. We're just, we're picking on certain things associated with the film, but we weren't. And that's why I was like, I'm going to leave this in. So, yeah.
Okay. Next one's from Christopher Page. It says you give the disc away one week and use it for the contest the next. It's Wizards from 1977. Yeah, we did do that, huh?
I know. That was an Easter egg for people, okay?
It worked.
It did.
I was really hoping to snag the disc last episode, as I've never watched the film that I can remember anyway, but seeing the image, what else could it be? Not a whole lot to say this time around. Life has had me pretty busy. If I can insert some shameless plugs.
Plug time.
In the podcasting world, for anyone who doesn't visit the B-Movie Cast Facebook group, Orphaned Entertainment recently reviewed the Burt I. Gordon classic Attack of the Puppet People. We had a lot of fun talking about that film, and a lot of good things to say about the film and Mr. Big. I would love it if a few listeners jumped over and gave that episode the love it deserves. Over on Time Shifters, we are continuing our series of Well, It Looked Pretty, discussing films that were either critically panned and or box office bombs, and seeing if there's more to the movie or if it really was all flash and no substance. I've also recently started dropping short 5-minute-ish reviews of some favorite vampire films of mine. The movies in the Full Moon Features Subspecies franchise.
Oh, I love those.
Okay, the first review is available now, and by the time everybody hears this, I expect the second will also be available. Also available is our coverage from the recent Cincinnati Comic Expo. We had a great time there, and the episode includes a few excerpts from a few Q&As with the celebrity guests, including Paul Williams. Wow. Look him up, Mary. You know him. Yeah, I remember him. Aren't you close to Cincinnati, or fairly close to Cincinnati, Nick?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes north of me. So
okay.
It's not that big a deal to hit it.
Oh, okay. That's it. Everyone have a great one. Hope to see you all next year. And that's from Christopher Page from TimeshiftersPodcast.com and OrphanEntertainment.com. Okay, next one is from Brenda McNeil. It says, Wizards 1977. At first glance, I thought heavy metal, but more elf look of the character changed my mind to Wizards. It's from Brenda.
Cool.
Heavy metal. Okay. And this last one is from Chuck Warden.
Hey.
Says the image for the latest contest is from Ralph Bakshi's 1977 film Wizards. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. The character is Avatar. Wow. For a long time, I had mixed feelings about Bakshi, but this film and his riveting American pop really got me. For a short time, he entertained me with my daughters, now grown, one with a grandson, by rebooting Mighty Mouse. I did not know he did that. That Saturday TV effort included Bakshi's take that at any moment in any story, Bedlam might explode all over the screen. Thanks for the time you spent on Don Sullivan and the crew on Giant Gila Monster. That was a great time, and they did a lot with that story, even without using a rear projection screen for the monster attacks. I do scratch my head on that last note, but still watched the film several times and enjoyed it. Best from Chuck Wharton. I look forward to when you screen for us again. So thank you, Chuck. I actually had to do a deep dive into Mighty Mouse. and the whole backsheet take on it. I did not realize he did that. But anyway, thank you. And that's it for the feedback.
All right.
So we actually got it done in time.
We got it done, and it looks like by the time we put the song on, fa la 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 la, then we should be absolutely perfect. How we can go for 3 hours, which we were laughing at the beginning, saying, "Yeah, will not take that long," on a movie which lasted 1 hour 40 minutes. And again, I'm saying that I'm probably the reason why we're about 4 hours in. But sorry. But you asked, so I had to tell. But yeah, I think we've all done it, and we've done ourselves proud by getting it done within the 3 hour mark. Incredible. And what's great,
I think it's.
When I listen to this is about the time it takes me to drive to London. So it'll be really nice to have one of the journeys just listening to this back. That'll be quite cool. For Halloween. Because it is part of our all of our Halloweens now, and we always do this, and we have done for about a decade or more. So let's make sure we keep it up, because it's all good fun. And as I said, by the time we finish off now and put the song on, we'll be there exactly 3 hours.
All right.
Cool.
Well, thank you for coming on, Mark.
Yes.
And let me tell you, I think the listeners, and I know
they enjoy
Mary and I enjoy hearing about your exploits.
Yes.
So I don't think the listeners mind at all. So
that's all right. As long as I'm forgiven, that's great. And yeah, if you can, let's hope Xanthi's performance goes well tonight.
Yes.
Yes, and all our love to her. That is so awesome.
That is so cool,
guys.
Well, and to Mauve and everybody else too.
Yeah, and yeah, let's get across. That's all I can say, and I'll show you these things all in real life, which will be lovely.
Oh, don't worry, we're planning it. So
okay, guys, always a pleasure.
Yes.
Thank
all
you.
right.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy
Yeah,
Halloween. Oh.
Okay.
Hey, Mary, that
was
howling
my
is my
wolf.
line.
What?
How's
I'm
Mike
the
Wolf?
werewolf guy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I thought you said how's Mike Wolf. I thought you meant the guy from American Pickers.
Jeez.
What? What do you know, Mike Wolf? There you go. Okay. All right, everyone.
Note, bye.
Bye, guys. Happy Halloween.
Bye, guys.
Is long, parola, paroli. There'll be no music in the tomb, so sing with joy and down with gloom. Tonight the new wine is in bloom. Paro, 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 long. Tonight we toast our happy host. Parola, parole. Parola, parole. For he's the man we love the most. Parola, parole. Parola, parole. His barrel-bellied dipper lip. For drinking wine he's well equipped. But where his chest it must have slipped. Paro, 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 long. The wine tonight is nobly blessed. Parola, parole. Parola, parole. By such a lady and her guest. Parola, parole. I toast, come drink with me, that may they ever happy be, and may they live eternally. Paro, 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 long. Come one and all and sing a song. Parola, parole. For life is short, but death is long. Parola. Stop that! Stop it! Quit that singing, will you? Eternally. I don't want to live eternally. Why did you say that to me? Get away from me. Stay away. Go away, all of
of here! Let me alone!
Adios, Mafia.
Well, they've gone.
For good, John?
No, just for now. It wasn't the right time for us to meet. But there'll be other nights, other stars for us to watch. They'll be back.
The ghosts are moving tonight, restless, hungry.
All right, fellas, here's your story.
Greetings, my friend. We are all interested in the future, for that is where you and I are going to spend the rest of our lives. And we cannot keep this a secret any longer.
Wait, Captain. I have found evidence of intelligent beings on this planet.
Look to the skies, it's the B-Movie Cookbook. Menus inspired by 15 of your favorite B-movies from the 1950s, with teenage werewolves, blobs, and enough cheese for everyone.
When we return to our planet, the High Court may well sentence you to torture.
But until then, we've got Ed Wood and Vincent Price.
There'll be food and drink and ghosts, and perhaps even a few murders. You're all invited.
So impress your friends with dinner and a movie with the B-Movie Cookbook. We've got you covered. Get your copy today at bmoviecookbook.com. That's bmoviecookbook.com.
Let me see that book. I am interested to see what sways your mind so heavily.
Sure thing, just visit bmoviecookbook.com.
Anybody around here want some coffee?
Transmission.
The good guys always win. Even in the 80s.